Timeless Assassin by author Raj_Shah_ 7152 Chapter 151–175. Leo's performance against Kjol left several of the VIP sponsors with mouths agape and eyes wide, as some even found themselves unconsciously wiping the drool gathering at the corners of their lips, for they finally saw in Leo what Major Hen and Principal Ulrich had known all along, that he was going to be the next universal sensation. What speed! What reaction time! That boy's nothing like a typical fighter. Leo Skyshard. I've never heard of the Skyshard clan. Which elite bloodline does this boy belong to? Mew. He's got to be one of those hidden Mew clan kids, sent out with a fake name like they always do. That's got to be it. The Mew clan will probably pull him back into the fold after the circuits. He's marketable too. Tall but not overly bulky. Fair-faced with those gray eyes, handsome, but not to the point where the common folk resent him. He's the perfect poster boy. Our armor would look perfect on him. His speed will be the talk of the entire circuits. We need to snatch him up before someone else does. Frankly, he should be a higher priority for our consortium than even Su Yang. The VIP lounge erupted in discussions, as excitement spiraled into thinly veiled desperation, as no one wanted to be the one watching Leo sign with a rival group. Since they all shared the same observation deck, watching their competitors' eyes light up at Leo's performance only heightened the sense of urgency, as even the most composed sponsors felt the mounting pressure to act fast. Principal Ulrich. Principal Ulrich, sir, if we could borrow a moment, I was actually thinking of making a generous donation to the academy, new floors, maybe even a new wing. Principal Ulrich, would you happen to have a minute to discuss the sponsorship of Leo Skyshard and Su Yang? I mean, they'll need responsible sponsors, right? For the sake of their future. Principal Ulrich, about that smaller badge slot on the sleeve of the team jersey. What was the asking price again? One after another, they swarmed him like starved wolves circling fresh prey, as Ulrich, seated comfortably with a glass of champagne in hand, watched the chaos unfold with the satisfied smile of a man who had seen this coming all along. Gentlemen, today is not the right time for discussing business, today we are here to watch and cheer on the kids. Pub Future ads. Please, for business inquiries, reach out to my office. We respond Monday through Saturday, Ulrich said, as he strategically shot down any and all attempts for a back-channel deal, as he wanted them to sit on this chance anxiously, so that he could drive up the price on his terms. Winner of this match, Leo Skyshard, will replace Vice Captain Kjol on the team, Major Hen declared a few minutes after the duel had ended, as the announcement echoed through the arena. At first, the crowd erupted in cheers for Leo's victory, swept up by the sheer spectacle of his dominance. But as their eyes slowly drifted toward Kjol, still kneeling in the center of the arena, head bowed, staring silently at the dirt, the applause softened, growing quieter with every passing second. For despite the thrill of the match, everyone present knew what kind of warrior Kjol was. Had Leo simply chosen another opponent, Kjol might have easily retained his position. But sometimes, life didn't care for effort or fairness. Sometimes, it simply pitted you against an opponent you couldn't overcome. Yet, what truly defined a warrior was how they stood in the face of such defeats. And Kjol, ever the gentleman, eventually rose to his feet, shaking off the dust from his armor as he turned toward the crowd. With a calm smile and no trace of bitterness, he raised his hand and waved, accepting both the loss and the respect it had earned him. For while he hadn't secured the victory he wanted, he had given everything he could. He had trained harder than anyone. He had fought without excuses. And though today didn't go his way, he could still leave the arena without a lowered head, for there was no shame in giving your all. If there's anyone I'd be proud to hand my spot over to, it's Skyshard, Kjol declared, standing tall despite the loss. Best of luck to him. And I hope you don't let Rodova down. With that, Kjol turned and walked off the stage, not as a defeated man, but as a warrior who had earned the respect of all. The crowd erupted, not in sorrow, but in admiration. Kjol, Kjol, Kjol. The chants echoed throughout the arena, louder than even the cheers that had followed the earlier victories, as the students and guests honored him like a hero. Even Leo, standing silently at the center of the ring, couldn't help but offer a few respectful claps, acknowledging the spirit Kjell had shown. And just like that, with no one left to challenge Yu Shen, the final circuit team roster was officially sealed. Only 2 first years had made it. Leo Skyshard and Su Yang. "Ladies and gentlemen," Major Hen announced, stepping forward as the noise began to settle, "it is my honor to present to you the 10 warriors who will represent Rodova Military Academy in this year's circuits." With a simple flick of his wrist, the massive display behind him lit up, showcasing the final roster of faces. Applause. The first years watched the newly crowned team with glittering eyes, each of them secretly imagining their own face up there next year. The sight of Leo and Su Yang standing among the senior elites made the impossible suddenly feel within reach, as hope quietly bloomed across the junior class. Yet, on the other side of the arena, the second-year seniors stood motionless, their hearts sinking as they stared at the team. As for them, there would be no next year, no third chance. Some clenched their jaws, others lowered their heads, but all of them knew. For better or worse, this was the end of their circuit dream. Rodova Military Academy, the circuit's team changing room. Following the final selections, Yu Shen gathered the newly assembled Rodova Circuits team inside the Academy's official changing room. The space, though functional, carried the weight of decades of history, the scent of sweat and polish lingering in the air, as worn-down lockers lined the walls. The 10 members each sat quietly before their assigned lockers, with Leo and Su Yang noticeably occupying 2 seats that once belonged to familiar faces. Leo sat beneath the nameplate etched with Kjell, while Su Yang found himself in front of Faison. Neither commented on it, yet the room felt it. Yu Shen paced slowly around the room, arms crossed behind his back, a small but genuine smile softening his otherwise sharp features. "This is it, guys," Su Yang suddenly spoke, breaking the silence as he leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "We are the team that's going to make history this year. We're the team that's going to win the circuits for Rodova after decades of coming up short." His words immediately shifted the atmosphere, as chuckles, nods, and murmurs of agreement spread like wildfire. Leo, usually indifferent to such speeches, felt a subtle warmth stir in his stomach as the atmosphere turned rowdy with laughter and high spirits. Yu Shen let them have their moment before raising a hand. All right, quiet down." He waited until the room settled. "It's safe to say no one here objects to Leo and Su Yang joining this room officially. Frankly, even if they didn't pass through today's selection, I would have sold my kidneys to get them on the team somehow." A ripple of laughter passed through the room, lightening the mood. "But thankfully, I won't need to do that," Yu Shen added with a nervous chuckle. "Kjell and Faison are gone now. We won't forget them, but we also can't linger on it. They contributed immensely to this team's growth, and the best way to honor their legacy," Yu Shen's eyes narrowed with resolve, "is to win the circuits for them." The room fell respectfully silent for a brief moment, before heads began nodding. "We have 2 weeks, Yu Shen continued. Subtract the grand parade, opening ceremony, media obligations, and 2 full days are gone. The final day is for rest, recovery, and getting your injuries patched up. That leaves us with 11 real days." He scanned every member's face, letting the pressure sink in. 11 days. That's it. And no, he added bluntly, unless one of you somehow ascends past your limits and becomes a grandmaster overnight, your power level is pretty much locked in. So stop chasing breakthroughs. His eyes swept across the room. Instead, consolidate what you already have. Polish it. Refine it. Because in the circuits, just like in life, the saying holds true, fear not the man who knows 1,000 moves, but fear the man who has practiced the same move 1,000 times. Yu Shen's voice dropped a tone, final and sharp. Pub Future adds. Am I clear? A resounding, yes, Captain, echoed through the room without hesitation, as Yu Shen allowed himself another indulgent smile. Currently, all the other academies have no idea as to what Skyshard and Yang are capable of. And although they will try their best to gather information, by contacting someone from their class, or even the teaching staff, the information they will gather will always be incomplete at best. Skyshard and Yang are wild cards for our team, and if we preserve them long enough, no team will be able to create a proper counter strategy against them, Yu Shen explained, as everyone nodded in agreement. With 4 Grandmaster warriors on this team, this is undoubtedly the strongest team we have had in years. However, circuits are not won by the number of Grandmasters you have. They are won by team effort and heart. Decades ago, when we lost our top spot to Geneva, they only had 2 Grandmasters compared to our 4, and yet we still lost because their fighters had more courage and heart. So this year, that's what I ask from all of you. Show heart. Till the last second, refuse to give up. Even if you can't finish an opponent, as long as you injure them or tire them out, your team member will sweep in and finish the job. Yu Shen said, locking eyes with every non-Grandmaster team member, as though warning them that their resolve would matter more than their raw strength. Alright, I won't take much more of your time. Let's give the new members their team jackets and special uniforms. And let's teach them the team anthem. Yu Shen said as he gestured for Liu and Su Yang to step forward, handing them each their team jackets and fresh uniforms. The jacket was black and gold with white-lined collars and a velvet finish. It hugged the body like it had been tailored personally, warm yet dignified, with the iconic Rodova crest stitched boldly near the heart. On the right sleeve, the number 55 stood out in sharp embroidery, marking the Academy's 55 past championship victories. Though Rodova had fallen from grace in recent years, it still stood atop the circuit's history, with Geneva trailing far behind at just 35 championships. As simply wearing it made one feel like they were carrying the weight of generations. And while the jacket was flashy, the team uniform itself was more modest, a simple shift from their regular academy outfit that now bore the words, Rodova Circuits Team, over the left chest badge instead of the usual, Rodova Military Academy, insignia. As there was no other change to the uniform. After Liu and Su Yang finished adjusting their jackets, Yu Shen stepped into the center of the locker room, raising one fist, as all other team members joined him, locking their fists in the air, with Liu and Su Yang being the last to follow suit. Alright, boys, team chant. Yu Shen said, as he looked into Liu and Su Yang's eyes, making sure they followed his words closely. This chant was made by the first captain of this academy's circuit team, centuries ago. And till day, we chant it nonetheless, Yu Shen began, as although he seemed a bit embarrassed by the out-of-fashion chant, he was still proud to keep the tradition alive. Repeat after me. Strength above all. Heart beyond strength. Rodova forever. He said slowly, as without hesitation, the entire room erupted. Strength above all. Heart beyond strength. Rodova forever. Quote. Again. Strength above all. Heart beyond strength. Rodova forever. Quote. Liu blinked, caught off guard at first, as for a moment, he almost scoffed. Liu couldn't believe that grown men were chanting gang chants that sounded like poems, yet as he glanced around the room, seeing hardened warriors grinning like kids, some tired but proud, the familiar sense of distance cracked. He felt something rise within him. It wasn't bloodlust. It wasn't hunger. It was warmth. Foreign. Quiet. But undeniably there. The atmosphere, the unity, the absurd chant, it stirred something faint in him, as though for the first time, he wasn't just participating for survival or advantage. As deep down, Liu felt it. Felt as to how, he did not mind belonging here. Even if it was just for now. Even if he knew this was never going to be permanent. In this instance, he wanted to be a part of this group, and hence, when the chant rang out a third time, he joined in, not out of obligation, but out of joy. As he too shouted, strength above all, heart beyond strength, Rodova forever. Quote. Next day, Rodova Military Academy, practical combat grounds. The academy underwent a temporary shift following the circuit team selections, as the training facilities, including the physical training grounds and the combat halls, were sealed off from the general student body. Access was restricted solely to the newly formed circuit team, granting them the privacy to train without fear of leaking strategies or revealing their fighting styles. Bloody hell, boy. It's just a spar. Don't faint for my neck like that, Hen barked as a shiver ran down his spine. Leo, who had already been a nightmare to spar against as a master-level warrior, was now practically untouchable since his breakthrough to Grandmaster. Ever since the realm jump, he had elevated himself to an entirely different league, where his every technique, every movement, felt sharper, faster, and heavier, leaving Hen struggling to keep up. However, what unsettled Hen more than his speed and improved strength of techniques was the sheer unpredictability of his blade, especially when he unleashed 1,000 phantom slashes. The layered illusions that the move produced weren't just harder to read, they were downright impossible, and even a veteran like Hen struggled against them. Slash. Leo's dagger found Hen's right forearm, drawing a shallow cut. Bloody hell, boy, Hen grumbled, rubbing the wound. I'm an old man whose eyes don't work like they used to. Have some damn mercy. Yet, behind the grumbling, his eyes gleamed. The sting of the cut didn't upset him, it thrilled him. The challenge, the pressure, the fact that Leo could force him to fight seriously even now, brought Hen genuine joy, as without missing a beat, Hen gripped his weapon tighter, as his aura flared sharply. Okay, I'm upping the ante by a notch, try and keep up, Hen said, as he decided to push his body to 90% of his total strength output, as he fought Leo as seriously as he could in a spar. Since Leo was still familiarizing himself with the newfound strength of his Grandmaster body, Hen had been taking it easy on him during the spar, only gradually increasing the tempo so that he could acclimatize. However, now that Leo had drawn first blood, Hen intended to show no mercy. Boom! The spar escalated, as Hen released a heavy cleave infused with heavy mountain breaking slash, causing cracks to ripple through the reinforced ground. Leo instinctively activated Celestial Veil, a transparent barrier enveloping his body as the slash collided harmlessly against it. Push! The force sent him sliding backward, boots grinding against the floor, yet, remarkably, he remained uninjured, as the barrier held strong. Whistle! Hen whistled, seemingly impressed by the defense, as he said. TCH, what a broken defense, it puts even tankers to shame. Leo said nothing in response as he lunged forward, chaining together Shadow Bind to slow Hen's movement for just a heartbeat, giving him the window to dive in. Yet Hen, ever the veteran, broke through the bind with sheer brute force, retaliating with a wide arc swing, forcing Leo to twist away at the last second. The two exchanged a flurry of movements, Leo weaving between Hen's strikes with agility and grace, while Hen pressed harder with each swing, testing the limit of Leo's newfound strength. Then, in a moment that caught even Hen off guard, Leo accelerated even more, a sudden burst of speed, as at one moment he seemed to be ducking to dodge an attack, but in another he had already slipped past his guard entirely, as if he had teleported within a split second. Huh, Hen said in panic, as his pupils constricted. However, before he could even reposition, Leo's dagger rested firmly against his chest as Hen blinked in disbelief. I lost, he said, eyes wide in disbelief. As only then did the realization fully struck him. I lost, Hen bellowed, bursting into laughter, the sound echoing through the empty combat hall. His booming laughter wasn't one of embarrassment, but of pride, sheer, unfiltered pride. As Leo stepped back, panting. 4-leaf clover 4-rabet 4-leaf clover. Fire play aviator now. Fire. You've grown, boy, Hen said, wiping a bead of sweat from his forehead as he tried to stifle his laughter. You're no longer some diamond in the rough. You're a goddamn treasure. It hadn't been an overwhelming victory. It was just Leo coupling parallel processing with 1,000 phantom slashes that created a moment of acceleration that changed the tempo of his movement entirely. However, it wasn't a decisive move, but rather just a clever trick that would work against any opponent once. But still, him being able to outmaneuver a battle-hardened veteran like Hen, even for a fleeting moment, was undoubtedly impressive, as it proved that his potential was boundless. I've got to tell this to the principal, Hen said with joy, as after months of watching Leo grow firsthand, Hen couldn't help but feel responsible for the boy's development as a warrior, as although there were many tutors mentoring him in the academy, he was undoubtedly the one who had the most impact on his fighting style. "The circuits are not ready for you, boy. Between you, Yang and Shen, we really can hope that Rodova will go all the way," Hen said, as he sounded genuinely hopeful about Rodova's chances to win this year. Slowly but surely, Leo found himself adapting to the overwhelming changes brought by his breakthrough, as techniques that once felt forced and taxing at the master level now flowed from him with natural ease. It wasn't just raw strength or top-end speed that had improved, those were easy to quantify. What made this advancement so profound was the subtle, yet decisive, difference it brought to every facet of combat. His footing recovered faster, his leaps carried him higher, and his muscles coiled and snapped back into position with flawless efficiency, allowing him to regain control even when caught in awkward angles or unbalanced stances. It wasn't something measurable with simple numbers, yet its effect on combat was monumental. It felt as if he could no longer be caught off guard, as even the wildest swings or the most reckless charges no longer left him vulnerable. The time it took him to regain perfect posture had been reduced to the blink of an eye, leaving no exploitable gaps for his opponents. And this was merely one of the many advantages the Grandmaster realm had bestowed upon him. Apart from this, it was his instincts that had grown keener, as if his body acted faster than thought, performing movements almost the instant he willed them to happen. It was essentially an improvement in reaction time. However, it made catching him off guard that much harder for his opponent, as Leo rarely felt surprised by a move coming his way anymore. And finally, ever since shifting to using mana as energy for his body, his battle stamina improved drastically, as his muscles didn't fatigue as quickly, his breathing steadied faster after exchanges, and his mana no longer churned uncontrollably when pushed, but flowed calmly, like water through familiar channels. Each of these small, immeasurable gains might have seemed trivial on their own, but together, they compounded into something terrifying. As Leo was no longer simply stronger, he was more complete. And that, more than anything, made him very dangerous. 3 days later, Rodova Military Academy. Leo was sparring with Minerva in the practical combat grounds when a sudden summons arrived, calling him to Principal Ulrich's office. "What does he want with me?" Leo muttered, instinctively wondering if he was in trouble. However, the low-ranking clerk who had delivered the message merely shrugged, clearly clueless about the reason. Left with no choice, Leo sighed, straightened his uniform, and began making his way toward the principal's office, uncertain about what awaited him. Thankfully, what awaited Leo inside Principal Ulrich's office wasn't trouble, but opportunity. As the doors sealed behind him, Ulrich gestured toward the chair across his desk, a half-finished glass of champagne beside him. "Sit," he said with a rare smile. "This isn't bad news, unless you're allergic to fame and money." Leo raised an eyebrow but took the seat without complaint. Ulrich leaned forward, fingers steepled. "Given your memory issues, I figured I should ask, do you understand the role sponsors play in a fighter's career?" Leo gave a short, dismissive nod. "Rough idea." Ulrich nodded back. "Then let me make it clearer. Look, kid, the circuits are a universe-wide event, broadcast to every corner of the Federation. Hundreds of billions tune in. It's one of the most watched competitions in existence, and although it only lasts a few days, the warriors who shine there, they become permanent public figures." He leaned back, letting the weight of those words hang in the air. "If you put on a good show, you won't just earn praise, you'll gain fans. Millions of them. They'll copy your hair, your robes, your fighting stance. They'll buy anything with your name on it. And that's why companies, especially the big ones, want to be the first to associate their brands with rising stars." Leo gave a small nod, this time with more focus. "Fighters from Rodova always pull in the best deals because we usually make it to the finals. Group sponsorships come in automatically: gear, travel, accommodations, shared revenue. That's normal. But what you're looking at, Ulrich paused, grabbing a thin file off his desk and tossing it toward Leo, or individual sponsorships. Leo opened it to see a list far thicker than he expected. Usually, only captains or headline fighters pull this kind of attention. Su Yang's got a few decent offers already, but you, Ulrich pointed, you've got dozens. He stood and began pacing slowly behind his desk. We've got major merchant groups wanting to model you for apparel lines. Luxury brands want you in their ad campaigns. We've got renowned weaponsmiths from the Central Worlds offering to forge you custom daggers, free of charge, just for the exposure. Designer tailors want to create your robes from scratch. Boot makers, hair stylists, cologne brands, even a nutritional supplement company. Ulrich turned back to face him, voice dry. Basically, there are people who want to sponsor everything about you. From the soles of your boots to the way your breath smells after a fight. He smirked. You're a blank slate with sharp blades, a mysterious past, and the looks to sell products across demographics. You're exactly what they've been praying for. And that's exactly why I can't let you settle for any of the offers you currently have in hand, Ulrich said, as his expression turned serious. They aren't bad offers, Ulrich clarified. Some are from respected brands, reputable weaponsmiths, and decent mid-tier merchant groups. He stepped forward, leaning casually against the front of his desk. But they're too niche, too narrow. What you need is not just a brand, but a consortium. A powerhouse that will back you, represent you, and invest in you long-term. Ulrich pulled open his drawer and slid out a much thinner, leather-bound file, which he then tossed lightly across the desk towards Leo. That's why I'm advising you to focus only on these three. Leo caught the file and flipped it open. These are the biggest merchant consortiums that have expressed interest in you, Ulrich continued. And they aren't here to sponsor you for a season. They'll cover you for the next 5 years, no matter what direction your path takes, even if you leave Rodova a year early. He spoke plainly, yet with absolute certainty. With their backing, doors you can't even imagine will open to you. He raised a hand, ticking off fingers as he listed. VIP auctions, restricted gear markets, rare and ancient ruins expeditions, black market invitations, personal connections to the nobility, elite weapon refiners, access to genetic modification tech, high-tier skill scrolls and meditation manuals, you name it. Leo's eyes sharpened slightly as he realized the weight behind Ulrich's words. The difference between having a consortium behind you and walking alone. Ulrich scoffed. It's the difference between scraping for scraps and eating at the king's table. Leo thumbed through the file slowly, eyes skimming the contents. -- 1. Silverlight Consortium. Specialty. Globalized commerce and military equipment conglomerate. Strengths. Balance between military contracts and consumer markets. Offer. Full sponsorship deal covering all weapons, combat gear, robes, utility items, and boots from Silverlight's military-grade manufacturing branches. 850,000 megapixels annual base salary, scalable with performance. Guaranteed 5-year contract. Access to all Silverlight-owned training facilities, including elite combat simulators, off-world testing ranges, and private dungeons. Priority access to their black market-affiliated, Silver Fang, auctions for restricted-grade materials. Publicity boost via the Silverlight Galaxy Net broadcasting division. Potential for long-term brand ambassador position, even post-circuits. Reputation. Known for backing war heroes and tournament champions. Seen as a steady, reliable, and slightly conservative option, but their network is massive, offering long-term security. -- 2. Crimson Phoenix Group. Specialty. Media, entertainment and sponsorship powerhouse. Strengths. Fame, influence, and aggressive marketing. Offer. 1,200,000 megapixels annual base salary with significant performance bonuses. Complete sponsorship of weapons, gear, robes, boots, and even cosmetic enhancements through partner brands. 5-year sponsorship with an option for extension. Guaranteed personal PR manager and exclusive Galaxy Net coverage. Automatic entry into all circuits-related entertainment programs, documentaries, and commercial deals. Exclusive access to high-profile events, auctions, private ruins expeditions, and rare auctions backed by their entertainment conglomerate. 5% royalty share on any Crimson Phoenix licensed products involving signee post-circuits. Reputation. Known for creating celebrities out of circuit champions. They focus on marketability, brand deals, and giving fighters the spotlight, but often pressure fighters into media obligations. 3. Horizon Dominion Group. Specialty. Military industrial scientific superpower. Strengths. Cutting-edge tech, experimental equipment, and rare resources. Offer. 1,500,000 megapixels annual base salary, flat rate with minimal bonus structures. Fully funded personal gear crafted by Horizons, Advanced Combat Systems, Division, including custom daggers, robes, combat boots, and proprietary relic-grade artifacts. Free access to Horizon Dominion's classified training facilities and experimental dungeons. Guaranteed spot in annual Horizon exclusive tournaments and private exhibitions. Priority invitation to ancient ruins expeditions under Horizon Group's excavation rights. Access to Horizon's internal black market for rare alchemical reagents and materials. 5-year sponsorship, with potential transition into a Horizon Research and Combat Division membership post-circuits. Reputation. The most prestigious consortium but also the most demanding. Fighters who sign with Horizon often face intense internal competition and are expected to act as experimental agents, testing new tech and gear on the battlefield. Signing with either one would not be a mistake, but which one to go for is up to you. They have all shown sincerity by offering you base salaries that's many times even what I earn, and is comparable to what Yu Shen got, even though you're just a first year and he's the captain. So think carefully about it, Ulrich said, as he let Leo think about his options in peace. Leo sat silently in front of the leather-bound file, his fingers absently tracing the edge of the crisp pages as his eyes skimmed through each offer, expressionless, as if indifferent to the life-changing decisions listed before him. He had never given much thought to sponsors before, as such trivialities had never been a part of his fragmented world, yet with Ulrich's earlier explanation ringing in his head about how essential sponsors were to a warrior's future, Leo found himself cornered into accepting the necessity of choosing one. Silverlight Consortium, Leo mused internally, as his eyes hovered over the first page with its neat bullet points laid out like a topper's class notes. Reliable, stable, deeply rooted in military and noble circles. Their influence reaches across sectors, and their reputation is spotless. He knew well that with Silverlight's backing, he would never lack gear, resources, or protection. Access to their black market channels and elite training facilities alone would make most warriors desperate to sign. Yet, as his fingers tapped idly against the file, Leo couldn't ignore the glaring flaw. They're too safe, too loud, too eager to showcase every warrior they groom. Silverlight didn't just sponsor fighters, they paraded them, splashing their names and faces across every Federation broadcast. The whole point of their model is visibility, making their talents impossible to ignore, Leo thought, as his lips curved downward slightly. And visibility, for Leo, was fatal. The Black Serpents won't want a celebrity. And I certainly can't walk into their ranks with my face recognized by every child with a hollow pad. Turning the page, Leo suppressed a sigh. Crimson Phoenix, he read silently, eyebrows narrowing ever so slightly. The file was dense, not with power, but with glamour. Reality shows, PR teams, exclusive documentaries, personal stylists, and commercial contracts, it reeked of a showman's fantasy. Su Yong would love this circus, Leo noted dryly. He lives for the spotlight. But Leo had no interest in such nonsense. I don't need millions buying my perfume or speculating about my love life. The moment the circuits end, I need to vanish. The reality settled heavily within him. Once this tournament ends, my next destination isn't the entertainment industry, it's the underworld. The black serpents don't care if I'm trending on Federation Net or if I've got a fashion line. If anything, it will make them put me down before I ever step through their door. The sheer weight of attention Crimson Phoenix offered wasn't a blessing, it was a death sentence, and hence Leo counted them out and instead flipped to the next page. Horizon Dominion Group, he read, eyes lingering on the word Dominion, as somehow that naming felt intimidating yet impressive to him. Their offer is plain, there's no glitter, no public campaigns, no tailored brand image, just access. His breathing steadied, as every line he read only confirmed his instincts. Access to relic-grade equipment, to restricted ruins and dungeons, to private black market auctions known only to those with real power. Horizon's business wasn't about being seen, it was about controlling the parts of the world unseen. Experimental equipment, connections with off-record mercenary companies, and an intelligence network that probably knows more about me than I do. It was exactly the kind of backing an assassin needed. Of course, they wanted him to participate in showcase fights, demonstrations for weapon sales to powerful buyers, but that was a small price to pay for the backing they have him. Better to show off in a private, invite-only duel than parade myself before the whole universe. And above all, Leo's thoughts darkened as a quiet realism slipped into them. If my past is worse than I imagine, if someone from the universal government comes knocking to arrest me one day, then only Horizon has the power to sweep it under the rug, as they are clearly the group with the most connections and power that could potentially get rid of my past, if I need them to. Leo thought, as he leaned back, gaze distant for a heartbeat. How much time do I have to decide? Leo asked Ulrich, as he wanted to take a couple days to decide. However, unfortunately, Ulrich did not give him such time. 5 minutes, kid. The representatives from all three are sitting in the VIP lounge on the ground floor. They'll need to get your measurements and styling done today if you want your gear ready before your first match. What did you think? Custom-grade equipment just falls from the sky. Ulrich scoffed with trademark sarcasm, as Leo let out a soft sigh. For a few more seconds he thought about his choice, but after thinking it through, he felt positive that Horizon was the best he could do for now, and hence. I'll go with Horizon Dominion, he declared, as Ulrich let out a low chuckle, giving a knowing nod. That's the choice I would have recommended too, even if I've got a personal grudge against them lately. You might not know this, but Horizon sponsored the entire Rodova team for 2 decades straight before suddenly jumping ship to Clarence this year. But, I'll admit, grudges aside, they're definitely resourceful. Ulrich stood, pouring himself another drink as he continued. They'll ask you to show up at some private arms demonstrations and might throw you into a few weird exhibition fights now and then, but they'll get you what you need. Meditation manuals, equipment, even the kind of rare materials others won't find in 10 lifetimes. Ulrich glanced back, eyes slightly more serious. You're not making a mistake, boy. If anything, you might have just made the best move of your fighting career. Ulrich said, as he gestured for Leo to leave his office. Go down to the VIP room 3 and have your sizing taken. I'll inform them of your decision before you arrive. Also, make sure to read all the terms and conditions before you sign their contract, as they're cheeky little bastards who submit one contract to the Academy, but make small changes to the one that is actually signed by you, Ulrich warned, as Leo gave him a curt nod before leaving. Thank you, Leo said, as he walked out of the principal's office and made his way towards VIP room 3, where representatives from Horizon were thrilled to see him. Welcome to Fanfic Audiobook, your go-to place for immersive audiobooks. If you enjoy the content, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories. And please support the author by link in description. Rodova Military Academy, VIP Room 3. The moment Leo stepped through the polished double doors of VIP Room 3, he was immediately greeted by a flood of champagne, forced smiles, and polished shoes. A group of well-dressed Horizon Dominion executives stood waiting, glasses raised, as their assistants unfurled a pristine white banner that read in bold silver letters, "Welcome to the Horizon Dominion family." It was a scene straight out of a corporate gala rather than a contract signing, as laughter filled the room, accompanied by a chorus of eager voices. Grandmaster Leo. Welcome. We've been waiting for you. Young man, you've made the wisest decision of your life by signing with Horizon. Well done, Rodova's finest. Leo kept a blank expression, responding only with the occasional nod or brief word when prompted. He navigated the crowd with practiced calm, yet inwardly, he was nothing short of uncomfortable. The shallow laughter, the constant stream of compliments, and the clinking of glasses felt foreign and suffocating, but he played his part without a hitch. Within minutes, the assistants had him standing on a raised platform as they began taking his full body measurements. Tailors circled him like vultures, murmuring to each other while snapping notes on tablets, as they debated on what style to dress Leo in, to bring out his natural flair. Now, young man, one executive began as another swirled their champagne, tell us about your preferred weapons. You're a dagger specialist from what we saw in your selection matches, yes. As Leo answered calmly, dual daggers. Around this length. He gestured with his hands. Weight balanced for both melee and ranged throwing. The handle shouldn't be too grippy, or too slick. I throw them occasionally, so I need the option of a clean release, and a blade design that can travel in a straight line regardless of whether it's thrown straight, or with rotation. He explained, as he demonstrated the two different types of motion a dagger can undergo upon release, just to make sure that these amateurs understood what he was talking about. And just as he expected, the executives exchanged impressed glances as if he'd just revealed some long-lost martial secret. Marvelous, marvelous. Quite the professional. We will definitely relay your request to our consortium's top weaponsmith. You will find his work very commendable. Joey, did you note all that down? Make sure you don't miss a word. The executives said, as they smiled at Leo with their big eyes and fake smiles, which secretly gave Leo the ick. In your combat gear, we have some wonderful prototypes ready. Some with accented reds and yellows to make those sharp gray eyes of yours pop. One of them suggested, as Leo instantly felt repulsed by the idea of being dressed in red and yellow. No, black. I only wear black, Leo declared, leaving no room for debate. Black. One of them blinked in confusion. As an assassin, black suits me best. Leo doubled down, as although the Horizon Company men did not seem too thrilled by his choice, they decided not to antagonize him over it anyways. Of course. Subtlety is power. We'll make sure it's sleek, minimal, and perfect for your style. They reassured, as another hour crawled by, filled with endless rounds of corporate chatter, shallow jokes, and self-praise disguised as conversation. Leo maintained composure, answering questions when needed, giving technical preferences, and deflecting needless flattery without ever losing his detached calm. Finally, after nearly 2 hours, one of the assistants brought out the official Horizon Dominion sponsorship contract for Leo to sign. Without missing a beat, Leo read through every line with sharp focus, carefully comparing it to the version he had reviewed in Ulrich's office. And only after he was satisfied that it was indeed untampered, did he sign it. I've signed the contract and filled in the details that I know of, but this section here I'm not sure of right now, Leo said as he pointed towards the banking details section. I'm not sure what my account is, or if I even have one under my name, Leo confessed, as the executive simply waved it off with a chuckle. No worries. We'll handle that ourselves. It's standard procedure to do a background pull and attach the correct account later. You just focus on shining for us at the circuits for now. With that, the deal was sealed, and Leo officially became a Horizon Dominion-sponsored fighter, though, in truth, the glitter never quite reached his eyes. He felt happy to receive custom gear that would probably fit him slightly better than the Rodova Academy-issued gear. And also felt happy for the money that would help him with his life outside the Academy. However, apart from that, Leo found the entire affair just tiring for now. Rodova Military Academy, the mess hall. News about Leo receiving various sponsorship offers spread throughout the Academy by afternoon, as somehow, the fact that various consortiums were waiting in line for a meeting with him were leaked in real time. Holy shit. Getting a private sponsorship offer from Horizon, and that too is a first year. He's getting a better deal than even Yu Shen. Man, I'm so jealous. I wonder how it would feel to have countless beauties taking your measurements and flattering you with compliments as they design your fit and style. Monarch talent, handsome looks, and now a powerful sponsor. What doesn't this guy have? God, if you're listening, please reincarnate me as Leo Skyshard in my next life. This guy has got it all. The students talked amongst each other, discussing Leo's sponsorship offer, as everyone felt excited for the same. However, it wasn't until Leo walked into the mess hall that the entire place devolved into hooting and clapping, as surprisingly, him getting a sponsor seemed to elicit a bigger cheer from the Rodova crowd than him sealing his spot at the circuits. There he is, there is the new signee of Horizon. Leo, me and my friends wanted to congratulate you on your circuit team selection. If you wanna visit our room tonight, the four of us will be waiting for you, naked. Back off, there's rumors he's dating the shorty Mu Ryan. Don't break the happy couple. Oh, he's not. Mu Ryan was caught giving a blow to Mu Shen a couple days ago. She's definitely not a couple with Su Yong or Leo as you guys make it to be. Leo almost winced at all the clamor that erupted upon his arrival, as he gave the rowdy crowd a fake smile and a wave, before quickly filling his plate as he took his corner seat, where his familiar friends sat across from him. So, is it true? Mu Shen was the first to ask with an excited look on his face, as Leo shrugged back in response. I signed with Horizon, yeah, Leo said, as Mu Shen jumped over the table to give him a hug and a punch to his shoulders. You signed with Horizon. You signed with Horizon. Motherfucker, that's the dream for warriors like me. Show some joy when you say it. Show some emotion sometimes, you cold, autistic bastard. Mu Shen said, as he shook Leo violently. Congratulations, big brother. Congratulations, Skyshard. Horizon is not too bad. Not as good as my Crimson Phoenix, but not bad. They suit your personality. Mu Ryan and Su Yong said, as Leo let out a small scoff. Thanks, I guess, he replied dryly, as unlike them, he did not think it was a big deal at all. However, judging by how the conversation about sponsors dragged on throughout lunch, Leo realized that perhaps there was more to this than he was reading into for now. The following days passed in a blur, as Leo quickly adjusted to his new routine. Now a member of the Rodova circuit team, he was exempt from attending regular classes until the tournament concluded, leaving him with nothing but relentless combat practice during the day, and hours of tape analysis with the team each night. Since both he and Su Yong were newcomers to the circuit world, they had an overwhelming backlog of footage to review, recordings of previous matches, friendly spars, and countless encounters gathered over the past year, showcasing the techniques, habits, and quirks of every major opponent they might face in the upcoming circuits. There was no denying the value such tapes provided, as there were countless moves to catalog, fighting styles to dissect, and technical patterns to memorize. Yet, despite understanding the strategic edge this information could offer, Leo couldn't help but find Rodova's almost religious dependence on it unsettling. You see that move, Skyshard? Enzo, the team's weakest member, pointed out enthusiastically as he replayed a particular clip for the third time. That's called double jump. It lets the caster turn their second step into a mid-air leap after activation. The key is to watch for the blue glow beneath the soles, it's always the giveaway. He leaned in, eyes serious. If you ever face Matilda, be wary. She's ended dozens of fights by baiting opponents into misreading it, following up with an overhead slash to the skull. Leo simply shook his head, unimpressed. What if she uses a secondary skill to simulate the blue glow? Or worse, uses an illusion technique to hide it altogether? Leo replied, tone calm but sharp. Yes, this information is valuable, but placing too much faith in it is no different than handing your opponent the script to your downfall. His eyes lingered on the paused frame of the footage. Information is like a dagger, he continued. Sharp when used properly, but in the hands of an amateur, it'll only end up cutting the one holding it. Leo warned, as the other team members apart from Yu Shen and Su Yong scoffed at his words. We have the second coming of Captain Shen in these first years. They don't understand the importance of tactical data. Just memorize the taped skyshard, you'll thank us after it helps you win one of your fights. You must grasp every advantage you can before a fight of this magnitude, this is more important than even the studies you do in class. The other team members said, as Leo let out a deep sigh but kept his mouth shut. He was not debating the usefulness of the tapes here. He knew they were useful himself. However, what he was trying to warn the team about was their over-reliance on it. As while discussing the tapes they did not even seem to be willing to discuss the various different angles where this prior information could be turned against them. Out of the corner of his eye, Leo briefly caught Su Yong glancing at him with a subtle smirk, while Yu Shen silently nodded to himself, both clearly understanding the deeper point Leo was trying to make, even if the others were too caught up in data worship to notice. Just like that, the final day before the Rodova Military Academy circuit team's departure arrived, marking the beginning of their final preparations. And on this day, as mandated not only by Captain Yu Shen but also by every instructor and staff member involved with the academy, the entire team was strictly forbidden from engaging in any form of combat practice or physical strain, as they were instead ushered toward the Academy's famed massage and recovery wing for a full-body recharge, aimed at resetting them to their absolute peak. From morning until late afternoon, each team member underwent a meticulous series of treatments, starting with a mana-infused deep tissue massage performed by specialized therapists, whose expert hands worked in tandem with mana circulation techniques to loosen even the most stubborn knots buried deep within their muscles. Tensions they hadn't even realized they were carrying were released, as their bodies gradually unwound, leaving them feeling lighter with every passing hour. Following the massages, the team was led into the nourishment baths, massive stone pools filled with rare herbs, monster essences, and alchemical solutions designed to rejuvenate strained muscles and replenish inner vitality. The warm liquid seeped into every pore, soaking away the residual fatigue that months of hard training had left behind. Finally, once they were fully relaxed, the team was guided into the final phase, where professional healers carefully administered potion-based healing, followed by precise deep tissue energy manipulation, smoothing over internal scars and micro-damage that would otherwise linger beneath the surface. By the time Leo stood up from the last treatment, he felt as though every inch of his body had been repaired and reforged into something brand new. As for the first time in as long as he could remember, there was not a single muscle that felt sore, no stiffness in his joints, no lingering aches dulling his senses, only lightness, as though he could sprint across the entire academy without feeling the slightest burn. It was as if his body had undergone a full-body servicing, leaving him sharper, cleaner, and more prepared than ever. Remember to sleep for at least 8 good hours tonight. Sleep is crucial, and while you might feel physically relaxed after today, let me assure you, your mind is not, Yu Shen instructed firmly near the evening, as the team members dispersed toward their dorms for one final night of rest before departing for the circuits at dawn. His words were heeded well by most, as the team, lulled by the day's recovery treatments, drifted into deep, peaceful slumbers. However, unfortunately for Leo, peaceful sleep was a luxury he would not enjoy tonight. That night, instead of 8 hours of well-earned rest, he found himself trapped once more within a ghost sleep. Dragged helplessly into the fragmented memories of the past, Leo watched yet again as one of his ancestors was relentlessly hunted by a group of unknown pursuers. Yet, this time, it wasn't the familiar silhouette of a male warrior fighting for survival. As for a change, it was a woman who seemed to be the main character of this episode. Ghost sleep, Leo's perspective. The cold, colorless fog of the ghost sleep surrounded Leo once more as he floated aimlessly within the fragmented memory of his bloodline. Yet unlike previous visions, this one did not begin with the usual chaos or violence. Instead, it opened with the rhythmic pounding of footsteps echoing down a dimly lit concrete corridor, its paintless walls grainy and cracking as the overhead lights flickered inconsistently. Leo hovered silently above the ground, watching as a woman sprinted through the narrow hall, wondering for a moment how this was his first vision with a female ancestor. Her long dark hair trailed behind her, tangled and unkempt, while her breathing came heavy and desperate. She wasn't armored like a warrior, instead, she wore a simple, blood-stained denim jacket, the emblem on its shoulder long faded. Yet, despite the urgency, it was her face that stirred something within Leo. Her gentle features, strained by fear but refusing to break, felt painfully familiar. The shape of her jawline, the faint scar beneath her left eye, the way her brows furrowed with determination, all of it scraped against the walls of Leo's hollowed memory. Why does looking at her feel wrong? No, not wrong, familiar, Leo thought as a sharp pang gripped his chest. His body trembled slightly, even though he had no physical form within the dream. It wasn't recognition, at least, not yet, but there was no denying the bond that bloomed, fragile yet deeply rooted, as he found himself unable to look away. The woman wasn't alone. A middle-aged man with a thick beard ran beside her, wielding a battered automatic rifle. His steps were heavy but composed, as if he had long grown accustomed to carrying the weapon into battle. Trailing close behind were three more, two girls and a boy, all looking to be about Leo's age. Their faces flickered briefly under the poor lighting, but their eyes burned with determination, and in some cases, barely hidden terror. "They're holding Leo in Medicine Bay 3. We need to take the next left," the young boy shouted breathlessly, guiding the group. As Leo, still hovering invisibly, flinched at the mention of the name. Leo. His brows furrowed. My name. Is this about me? Or, is Leo just another ancestor? The thought unsettled him. It wasn't unheard of. The ghost sleeps had always shown him past fragments, pieces of the bloodline's harrowing history. Names repeating through the generations wasn't impossible. And yet, the way the woman's eyes, wide with hope and desperation, seemed to echo his own unspoken fears, the way her every step screamed urgency, as if retrieving whoever was ahead meant the world to her. The subtle warmth he felt just watching her, made him feel assured that this wasn't the same as watching the old memories of his predecessors. This wasn't just another Leo. This time, something told him it might actually be him. Tap asterisk tap asterisk tap. As the corridor opened a pathway to the left, the woman made a sudden turn, only to be surprised when she saw two guards standing not even 20 feet away. "Watch out," she screamed, but it was already too late, as one of the guards unleashed an explosive spell that blasted the entire group backward. Boom! A deafening blast erupted from the corner of the corridor, hurling the entire group like ragdolls. The scene fractured momentarily in Leo's vision, turning to chaotic blurs as dust and debris filled the air. The woman was thrown to the floor, her beautiful and kind face now dirtied with dust and smoke as she coughed violently while lying on the ground. She was no warrior. She didn't have the mettle to even get back up after such a minor blow, yet she had grit. Despite having no strength to stand, she fought to sit up, checking on the welfare of the group. When her vision steadied, she spotted two of the younger figures, the boy and one of the girls, engaged in brutal close-quarters combat, clashing swords against two black armored guards. Sparks flew as steel grated against steel, both young warriors fighting desperately to buy time. The woman struggled on the ground, trembling as she tried to push herself up. Yet the instant her hand pressed against her side, she froze. Blood. A dark, wet warmth painted her fingers as her eyes widened in shock. The blast had sent shrapnel deep into her abdomen, and the wound wasn't shallow. "Oh dear, oh Lord," she muttered, holding back tears. For a second, she faltered, but then, pulling herself together, she stood back up. However, somehow, seeing her suffer like this, seeing her clutching her side while breathing ragged, Leo's entire being trembled. A pressure built inside his chest. His pupils narrowed, and an indescribable fury erupted within him, tearing through even monarch's indifference, leaving the passive emotional suppressant useless against the storm brewing inside. What is this feeling? Leo wondered as he knew that he had endured much worse and it couldn't just be the vision that triggered him so much. He had seen death. He had delivered death. But this fury felt different. Hotter. Wilder. Uncontrolled. I don't even know her, so why? Yet even as he tried to convince himself, the sight of her gritting her teeth, tears barely restrained, rising to her feet despite the agony, made something deep inside him snap. And then, I must save Leo, I must save my baby boy, the woman whispered to herself, dragging her body forward despite the blood dripping onto the metal floor beneath her. As hearing those words, Leo's breath hitched. The words struck him like a hammer. And just like that, the memories returned. The faded edges sharpened. The fragments pieced themselves together. The childhood spent playing in sunlit streets, the warm meals prepared by her trembling hands, the late nights when she cradled him to sleep, the gentle songs she hummed when he was sick. She wasn't just some woman. She was his mother, Elena Skyshard, and the others. The middle-aged man with the rifle, his father. The young man, his brother. The pretty woman with the sword, his sister-in-law. And the other girl in oil-stained overalls, his girlfriend. That's my family. Leo stood there, frozen in midair, unable to breathe as reality crushed him. That's my family. Tears threatened to leak, but he forced them back. Powerless, he could only watch as Elena, refusing to falter, pressed forward, leaving a thin trail of crimson behind her, step by agonizing step, as the group rounded another corner. But what greeted them next caused Leo's heart to sink even further. Because as they turned into the next hall, their troubles only seemed to worsen, as dozens of black-armored soldiers stood ready, rifles aimed, expressions hidden behind visors. They can't win against this many, Leo thought, as panic flooded his system. Instinctively, he reached forward, desperate to break through whatever force held him in this ghostly state. Let me in, he roared, yet no matter how he struggled, his limbs remained immaterial, like smoke. Helpless, he could only scream silently as the group he now remembered as his family prepared to fight an unwinnable battle. And as he desperately tried to manifest, to reach them, reality tore him away. And he awoke. Gasp. Asterisk. Gasping, and drenched in cold sweat, his hands clenched tight enough to draw blood. His chest rose and fell rapidly as he stared blankly at the ceiling of his dorm. Tears slipped down his cheeks unnoticed. He finally remembered. He finally knew. They were looking for me. Rodova Military Academy, teacher's dorm wing. Bang asterisk bang asterisk bang. The metallic door rattled violently beneath Leo's fist, each blow echoing down the dim, silent hallway, as if the entire dormitory could collapse under his fury. Fay flung the door open, her cold eyes flashing with irritation at being disturbed at this hour, but the second she saw Leo, her breath caught, as instinctive caution gripped her. Leo stood there like a feral beast, hair disheveled, breathing ragged, and eyes wild, as though he had just returned from a battlefield drenched in blood. What in the, why are you banging on my door at this hour, cadet? Have you lost your? Leo didn't let her finish, as his hand surged forward, pressing against her chest, forcing her back into the room without ceremony, as his hoarse voice trembled. My family, are they even alive? Fay stumbled back a step as the door slammed shut behind Leo, her initial anger giving way to genuine concern, as the sheer desperation in his voice told her this wasn't just a passing nightmare. For the first time since meeting him, Leo did not look composed to her today. He wasn't cold, nor was he just angry, as he seemed to be genuinely broken. What do you mean? Of course they're alive, Fay began, attempting to dismiss Leo's panic as if it were a mere misunderstanding, but Leo swiftly raised a finger, cutting her off with a glare sharp enough to silence her. I saw it, I had a ghost sleep, so don't fuck with me, Fay, Leo snarled, his voice trembling not with fear, but with rage barely contained. Tell me the truth about my family, or I swear I will never trust you again. Fay stood stunned, her throat tightening, as the words of the evil cult elder echoed in her mind. Once he reaches the Grandmaster stage, his memories will begin to resurface. She had been warned, yet the moment still shook her. So it happened exactly as the elder foresaw, he regained pieces of it, and now he's standing here, demanding answers, she thought bitterly, letting out a deep, defeated sigh. You told me I took this mission to protect my family. You told me I'm doing all this to keep them safe. Then you better come clean right now, Fay, Leo pressed on, stepping closer as veins bulged in his clenched fists, his aura unsteady, because I saw them staring death in the face. Fay lifted her hands subtly, attempting to calm the tension. I'm not toying with you, Leo. Your family is alive. Listen carefully. Did you actually see them die? She asked carefully, her voice softer, more deliberate. Leo froze for a brief second, his breath hitching. And no, I didn't see them die. But I saw them charge into a hall full of enemies stronger than them. There's no way they survived. But, I'm not sure, Leo admitted, clutching his head, his breathing ragged as the tears threatening to spill clung stubbornly to the corners of his eyes. For the first time, Leo realized how ineffective Monarch's indifference was when it came to memories of his family, as no matter how deeply rooted the skill was, it could not dull the emotions that surged from his primal core. And although the skill did provide him with pockets of clarity, where he stabilized for a few moments and his mind rationalized, he quickly fell into the same slump when another wave of emotions hit him like a truck. They're alive, Leo, Fay said softly, carefully choosing her words. Breathing and safe, at least for now. Leo's throat closed up, trembling as his mind spiraled. He was relieved they were alive. But now that he knew they were alive, there were a dozen other questions that popped up in his head, which he wanted immediate answers to. Did they still think about me? Did they even know I'm alive? Did they want to meet me? His voice cracked more with each question, as his fists trembled, barely keeping himself upright. You were in danger. Your family came to rescue you. You were lucky to have such a family, Skyshard. But don't forget, they are also lucky to have you. Fay said, stepping forward as her expression softened ever so slightly. The mission you're on now is for their safety and for your own redemption. None of this is trivial. None of this is meaningless. That much I can promise you. Leo's throat closed up, as clarity returned to his head once again, with Monarch's indifference getting a hold of him. When you say they're alive for now, you mean they are still in some form of danger, aren't they? Leo asked, his breath quickening, as he caught onto a minor detail in Fay's words. Yes, they're still in danger. Hunted by the same forces that once imprisoned you. But they're being protected by my organization. Fay replied, as Leo's eyes widened in surprise. If they are in danger, then I must save them. Where are they? Who is hunting them? Which organization do you belong to? Leo asked desperately, as although he knew deep down that he wasn't supposed to know these answers, somehow he still couldn't help but ask them anyway. As listening to his words, Fay's heart wavered just for a moment, but she soon shook her head in denial. I can't give you those answers, Leo, I'm sorry, but I think you already know why. She spoke calmly, but it hurt all the same. If I return them now, every sacrifice you've made, every hardship you've endured so far will be wasted. Worse, your family will never be truly safe. You're doing everything you are right now for them. And I promise you it's not without good reason. I can't give you your memories back for now, but once you're officially part of the Black Serpents Guild, I will return everything. Every memory. Painful and sweet. But until then, you have to endure. She stepped back slightly. So if you want them back quickly, just kick ass at the circuits this year and win like it's nobody's business. Win. And get scouted into the Black Serpents as a first year. And you will have your memories back within 2 months. But until then, I'm sorry I can't, Fay said, as Leo nodded in understanding. Rodova Military Academy, next morning, the transport bay. Leo wasn't all smiles and chuckles like the rest of the team the next morning, as unlike them, he had not enjoyed a peaceful sleep. Instead, he remained calm and composed, as though the events of the previous night had firmly reminded him of what was truly at stake at the circuits. His family was out there, waiting, hoping, perhaps suffering, and just recalling the hell they had endured to save him, Leo finally understood why he was doing all of this. Mother, please stay safe. I'm doing my best, Leo thought to himself, as he quietly boarded the transport vehicle that was set to carry the entire team to the circuits. On board the ship, apart from the 10-man team, Rodova Military Academy had dispatched a small supporting entourage, 6 medical staff, 4 doctors, Professor David, Instructor Hen, and Instructor Me and Fay. David and Fay were to act as the official chaperones for the trip, their task being to ensure the team remained disciplined and didn't end up doing something idiotic that could cost them a disqualification. While Hen was the academy representative, he had the final authority on every decision, and his words carried the most weight at the circuits. Ideally, Principal Ulrich was also supposed to join them. However, Ulrich, just like the principal of Geneva, always came to the circuits a couple days late, after stupid formalities such as opening ceremony and the preliminary fights were over. Every year, the interstellar circuits were hosted at the same neutral venue, the legendary Sky God Arena, a colossal structure suspended within the asteroid belt of the twin star system Vetrax Sol. The arena itself wasn't just enormous in scale, capable of comfortably seating over 500,000 live spectators, but was also a technological marvel beyond comparison. At first glance, it resembled a metallic lotus, with curved petals extending outward from a towering central spire, orbiting serenely above the glowing suns. But what truly made the Sky God Arena special was not its seating capacity, nor its location, but the battlefield it held within. Beneath its polished combat floor were hundreds of meticulously crafted modular layers, each functioning as a fully independent stage, stacked one atop another, capable of being raised, lowered, or rearranged depending on the match. Some layers were simple open fields, others were dense forests, desert ruins, flooded lakes, steep cliffs, or even artificially created gravity zones. Every fight was a gamble, not only against your opponent, but against the very terrain beneath your feet. A button press could make the battlefield crumble, shift, or emerge into a new configuration, forcing fighters to adapt instantly, as no two fights were ever guaranteed to be the same, right up till the semi-finals. As the Rodova circuit team's transport ship landed smoothly inside the arena's vast docking bay, they were greeted immediately by a squad of stern-faced universal government officials, clad in their standard ivory uniforms and adorned with golden emblems. They saluted and performed a brief inspection, as was customary for all arriving teams, before allowing the Rodova squad to disembark into the designated team sector. Leo followed silently, taking in his surroundings, as massive cargo shuttles, supply ships, and dozens of other Academy transports filled the interconnected hangars like a mechanical hive. The air around him smelled faintly of fuel and mana-infused machinery, which was quite a pleasant smell to take in for him. However, he found Minerva pinching her nose for the same. Unlike him, she seemed to dislike the smell of fuel and machines, as she seemed to be clearly repulsed by the same. What happens when she someday visits an actual smithy? Leo wondered, as he shook his head in disappointment. Soon, the team arrived at the accommodations wing, where apart from their empty team villa, all the surrounding accommodations seemed to already be packed to capacity. Every luxury hotel, private inn, and temporary lodging facility built into the orbiting satellites and asteroids seemed to have been fully booked months in advance. Thousands of nobles, corporate elites, aristocrats, and influencers had already arrived, bringing with them families, attendants, and even private security detachments. Attending the circuits wasn't merely a sporting event, it was an event of power, a status symbol for the Federation's rich and influential. For many families, the circuits were treated as a 10-day festival, a vacation, and a business trip all at once. Those with season passes could watch every match live, attend post-battle social events, sponsor teams, buy merchandise, and even participate in exclusive meet-and-greet sessions with the competing fighters. For the younger generation, it was a chance to witness living legends and perhaps become their fanatics. While for the older generation, it was a critical networking opportunity, where guild leaders, consortium representatives, and high-ranking military officials mingled, negotiated, and formed alliances behind the scenes. Leo could see it even now, as from the arena's docking bay windows, the bustling floating platforms swarmed with guests, some draped in silk robes worth more than an average citizen's yearly wage, others accompanied by mechanical servants or private mercenary guards. And amidst it all, floating like a king above commoners, was the Sky God Arena itself, prepared to host yet another year of blood, pride, and spectacle. Stop gawking and come inside Skyshard, unless you want someone with a diagnosis skill to get a reading on all your body attributes. Yushen nudged, as he urged Leo to get inside the team villa at once. All right, Leo replied as obeying the captain's command, he entered the team villa, which was a luxurious 7 BHK housing, with a private pool and a built-in sauna room. The 3 rooms on the ground floor are for his 3 elders. You kids can settle into the rooms above. There's nothing scheduled for the next hour, however, after that we have to report for the opening ceremony, so change into your team jackets and meet me back here in 40 minutes. Is that clear? Hen instructed, as everyone replied with a, yes sir, and scrambled to get settled in their rooms. Sky God Arena, opening ceremony. The stadium buzzed with anticipation as over 1,000 banners from across the Righteous Alliance fluttered above the colossal Sky God Arena. The stands, though not yet at full capacity, still swelled with tens of thousands of spectators, their cheers echoing faintly under the domed structure. At the heart of the Sky God Arena, the grand opening ceremony of the interstellar circuits was about to commence. Over 1,200 academies stood assembled, lined up with rigid discipline along the arena's outer perimeter, each dressed in their distinct team uniforms and with their captains carrying their academy banners high. The order of appearance followed strict alphabetical protocol, with teams entering and forming ranks in order, starting from Aviran Academy, O1 at the front to Xinjiang, the 1,201st, stationed deep at the back. A massive holographic screen floated high above the field, flashing the names and faces of every participating team member for the audience to see, as live commentators provided detailed introductions and trivia about various academies. Oh, that's Kevin Jack Sherwin. That's the Fenerbahce Academy's colossal 10 feet tall human captain. Look at the muscles on that mountain of a man. He looks more like an orc than a human. Indeed, he's very impressive, but not as impressive as Gino from Leyway Academy. He might be from the dwarven race, but that dwarf is not a crafter, he's a mauler unlike no other. The commentators bantered with practiced enthusiasm, entertaining the crowd, while the cameras panned across the teams as they marched. Rodova's team stood silently, awaiting their turn as Su Yong adjusted his gloves, and Enzo hummed nervously beside him. Leo, ever the stoic, waited patiently without shuffling on his feet, as he calmly observed the surroundings without uttering a word. A single grand pathway circled the entire arena, designed specifically for the ceremonial march. It was wide enough to accommodate even 50 people at once, however, with all teams being only 10 individuals, most of the space remained unused. At the center of the arena, towering high on a raised platform, sat the guest of honor for this year's circuits, demigod Akumi, draped in a flowing black and gold robe, perched atop a stone-carved throne with intricate patterns etched along its surface. Akumi sat motionless, eyes closed, arms crossed, as though disinterested, yet every academy that passed trembled slightly when saluting him. His power was palpable, leaking from his very presence. One by one, teams began their march, stepping in perfect synchronization as they circled the Sky God Arena. Upon reaching the front, they raised their fists to their chests and gave the military salute, pausing just briefly beneath Akumi's watchful gaze. The screen magnified their faces for all to see, and every slight smile, tremor, or confident grin was broadcasted to the spectators. Some teams drew cheers, especially the more famous academies, whose past glories or celebrity warriors had earned them dedicated fanbases. Meanwhile, the smaller or lesser-known academies passed with only polite claps. Leo noted quietly that while many teams smiled proudly at the cheers, others visibly buckled under the pressure, some even stumbling during the march, as their mistakes caused their faces to flush red. Finally, after what felt like hours, the commentator's voice rang out. And now entering, number 1026, Rodova Military Academy. The academy with the most championship victories in tournament history, though they haven't seized the ultimate title in the last 22 years. Could this be the year of their return? Cheers echoed from sections of the stands, particularly from the older spectators who still clung to the nostalgia of Rodova's golden era. Leo, Su Yong, Minerva, and the rest of the team marched forward in perfect formation, every step sharp and disciplined, a reflection of Rodova's renowned military training. At the front of the formation, Yu Shen carried the academy banner with pride, his chin raised, his gaze unwavering as he led them onward. Yet, as they neared the central dais, where the towering throne of this year's guest of honor loomed, Leo felt a chill crawl beneath his skin. The demigod, Akumi, sat high above, eyes initially closed, but as Rodova approached, those ancient eyes flicked open, sweeping over their formation like an overlord looking down on his subjects. Leo's instincts flared wildly as the demigod's gaze landed on him, as panic gripped him and his bloodlust surged, threatening to spill out uncontrollably. Yet, through sheer willpower, he forced it down, biting back the murderous intent that clawed to escape. His body trembled slightly beneath the strain, as every fiber of his being urged him to lash out, but he refused. Instead, he mirrored the team, raising his fist to his chest in a sharp, formal salute, steadying his breathing as best he could. And then, for a split second, Leo swore Akumi's gaze lingered on him, just a heartbeat longer than it had for any other academy. The demigod's expression remained unreadable, but that brief pause left a knot in Leo's stomach, as if he had been marked, inspected, or perhaps, noted. Akumi then gave them the same slow, indifferent nod he had granted every other academy, as if nothing had happened at all. And just like that, Rodova's march concluded without incident, as the team exited the ceremonial path and regrouped at their assigned section of the arena. Only then did Leo realize that everyone, even the more experienced Yu Shen and Minerva, were quietly gasping for breath, their bodies slick with cold sweat. They hadn't even fought, yet the mere gaze of a demigod had left them winded. Just one glance, and it was enough to weigh us down like this. No, if he had truly tried to intimidate us, we wouldn't have even been able to move, Leo thought, his mind struggling to grasp the scale of power he had just witnessed. The difference between them and Akumi wasn't just a gap. It was a chasm, a divide as wide as heaven and earth itself. Yet, amid the awe, Leo felt something else stir inside him. A small but steady ember. One day, I'll stand there too. The ceremony pressed on, as dozens more academies finished their march. It took nearly another half hour for the last of them to salute, at which point the formalities finally came to an end. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, the opening ceremony concludes. The commentator declared, voice booming across the arena. Tomorrow, the real bloodshed begins, as the first official matches of this year's circuits kick off. The applause roared, the energy of the crowd reaching its peak, as the stage was officially set. The Sky God Dome, Grand Banquet Hall. Following the opening ceremony, all the participants were asked to proceed to the Grand Banquet Hall, where a gala lunch was arranged for them to chat and dine before the tournament began tomorrow. It was a super social event, where long-lost cousins of the 6 great clans and some other renowned clans got together and fraternized. And yet another event, where the commoners felt slightly inferior and marginalized compared to their highborn peers. Skyshard, stick close to me during the gala dinner, all right? Su Yang asked as the two of them stepped into the grand banquet hall alongside the rest of Rodova's team. Is there something I should be aware of? Leo replied calmly, his sharp ears picking up on the faint tremor in Su Yang's voice, as the usually confident warrior seemed unusually tense and unsettled. No, I've got it under control, Su Yang exhaled, forcing a grin. Just, stay close, and stop me from doing something stupid, like killing someone if we happen to cross paths. Su Yang requested, as Leo let out a soft chuckle, amused by the strange blend of seriousness and humor lacing Su Yang's words. It wasn't often that Su Yang appeared genuinely unsettled, and if Leo's instincts were anything to go by, the reason behind it likely revolved around one person, Su Ran. Su Ran, the illegitimate child of Su Yang's father and a black mark in the eyes of their clan, was an unfavored successor to the patriarch's position, yet his undeniable talent kept him firmly in contention. A year older than Su Yang, Su Ran had joined Geneva Military Academy the previous year and wasted no time, making it onto their main circuit team as a first-year Grand Master, a feat that had stunned many. Not only did he manage to impress the whole universe with his fighting skills last year, but now he was already under the sponsorship of the Blue Ocean Consortium and was widely regarded as one of the star contenders of this year's tournament. Yet what most did not know was that Su Ran was also the reason Su Yong had never set foot in Geneva. Su Yong, with his own talent, could have easily secured a spot on Geneva's team the moment he enrolled, but his hatred for Su Ran had driven him to reject the obvious path, leading him instead to Rodova, just to avoid ever standing under the same banner. "I'm training to take my brother down at the circuits," Su Yong had told Leo many months ago, and now that they were here, it seemed like Su Yong was irritated just by standing in the same room as his brother. Thankfully, for the first few minutes, nobody bothered the Rodova team that mostly stuck together. There were only a few other team captains that came to have a chat with Yu Shen, and take a peek at the roster standing behind him, but nothing serious. However, all that changed when the Geneva team finally approached the Rodova team, in what was a clash of the interstellar circuit titans. At the front of the Geneva delegation stood Gu Ramos, their captain, tall and broad-shouldered, while behind him was his roster of mostly Grandmaster warriors who walked with their chins held high in the prestige of reigning champions. "Yu Shen," Ramos said, extending his hand with a practiced smirk. "Gu Ramos," Yu Shen replied coolly, grasping the hand without the faintest hint of a smile, as the two squeezed each other's palms. The brief handshake was stiff, more of a formality than a greeting, as neither man flinched under the other's gaze. Here to lead Rodova into their 23rd loss in a row. Ramos jabbed, flashing a cocky grin, as Yu Shen's lips twitched into an irritated smirk. "At least we'll take the silver again, unlike you, who I heard struggled against Clarence," Yu Shen said, clicking his tongue, as he mocked Ramos for their recent media scandal. TCH, try not to get knocked out before the semifinals. That would be quite shameful." Yu Shen doubled down, as the surrounding crowd erupted into whispers, some letting out quiet oohs and chuckles at the sharp retort. Meanwhile, a few steps behind them, Su Ran, the vice-captain of Geneva, turned his attention to Su Yong, his younger half-brother. "So you made it too, little brother," Su Ran said smoothly, his voice dripping with condescension. Su Yong visibly winced at the sound, his fists tightening instinctively as he glared. "I have no words to waste on a lowborn like you," Su Yong shot back coldly, his voice sharp and restrained as Su Ran chuckled, unaffected. "Cold as always, I see," he said, trying to bait Su Yong into abusing him more as usual. However, before Su Yong could say another word, it was Leo who placed a hand on his shoulders, urging him to hold back. "You must be Leo Skyshard, Horizon's new signing and Rodova's #1 junior. A pleasure to meet you. However, I'm disappointed in you, Yang. You're from the Su family and yet, you still came second to some random Skyshard kid," Su Ran said, as he turned his gaze from Leo to Su Yong once again, clearly trying to instigate a reaction out of his brother. "Thank the heavens you didn't come to Geneva and chose Rodova instead, as with a talent like that you wouldn't even have made it to the Geneva team." Su Ran mocked, as his teammates laughed as Su Yong, who clenched his fists tightly at the insult. "What did you saw?" Su Yong began, but before he could erupt, Leo calmly stepped forward, placing himself between the two. "Thank you for acknowledging me," Leo said with a polite but hollow smile. "I had no idea I was famous before the tournament even began." He tilted his head slightly. "But I'm terribly sorry, I can't say the same for you." "I have no clue who the fuck you are." Gasps spread through the crowd, as Leo failed to recognize Su Ran, last year's champion and star performer, as judging by the audience reaction, Leo's smile only widened slightly. "But it doesn't matter. No one will remember your name after I smash you in battle anyway. So from now on, just hope and pray you don't cross paths with me again." Leo delivered convincingly, as with that, Leo turned sharply, signaling the rest of the Rodova team members to follow as they left Su Ran and the Geneva team standing there in stunned silence. "Did he just say he doesn't know you? Su Ran, did they just turn their backs on us and leave? Wait, I just thought of an epic comeback for what he said. Damn it, I want to say it so badly now. Fucking Rodova dogs, seems like we will have to put them in their place this year as well. The Geneva team huffed and puffed in anger, as they felt pissed at the hit-and-run tactic that Rodova had used. Being the champions, they had a very egoistic pride that couldn't handle being insulted like this. However, chasing after Rodova after they already turned and left would now make them look extremely petty. Leaving them with no other option but to swallow their prides and hold their words for now. The rest of the banquet passed by without a hitch for Leo and Su Yong, who kept chuckling from time to time at nothing in particular. The duo garnered a lot of side-eyed gazes from the crowd, who would often talk in hushed tones behind their backs. However, neither Leo nor Su Yong let that affect themselves. Already accustomed to the back talk in school, the duo felt right at home in the banquet, which they completed without any incidents before returning back to the villa. The Rodova team villa, 5 p.m. It was 5 p.m. when the team gathered in the villa's spacious living room for their final strategy meeting. Tomorrow marked the beginning of the circuit's most notorious phase, the preliminary elimination round. With over 2,000 teams participating, it was simply impossible to allow every academy to compete in the formal tournament bracket, which is why the participant pool was mercilessly cut down to just 64 teams through a brutal and unforgiving preliminary round, a trial dreaded by all mid-seeded teams. The rules were straightforward, but the execution was anything but. All 2001 teams were seeded into 4 groups, A, B, C, and D, based on their academies standing from the previous year, with only the top 16 teams from each group advancing to the main tournament. Each group was assigned one of the Sky God Arena's classic battle layouts, the forest, desert, tundra, or flat plain, each terrain designed to test not just strength but adaptability and strategy. The objective was equally simple on paper: eliminate as many opponents as possible within a 1-hour time frame, with every opponent defeated awarding 1 point. Above the battlefield, live rankings would be projected onto massive screens for all to see, constantly updating as teams fought tooth and nail to climb into the top 16. This was also the only round where all 10 members of every team fought simultaneously, creating a chaotic, all-out battlefield where alliances were formed and broken in seconds, and where underdogs often pulled off shocking upsets. Pub Future adds, for many mid-seeded academies, this was not just a test of skill, but the most dangerous gamble of the entire tournament, as just the difference in prize pool for academies that made it to the top 64 and the academies that did not, was a massive 25 million MP. For most mid-sized academies, the entire goal of the circuits was to get to the round of 64 and get the 25 million megapixels reward to improve their facilities. However, for Rodova it was nothing to write home about. We have an alliance with the Nature Military Academy and the Sapphire Academy for the first round, so nobody kill their students. Is that clear? Yu Shen said, as he presented a strategy map on the living room monitor. We are in Group B and the battle map assigned to us is the forest map, which means there will be plenty of places for our enemies to hide and set up ambushes. Forest is one of those maps where hunting alone can cost you dearly. However, we are Rodova Military Academy, and we can't go around like bitches either, so we will move in packs of 2. I'll go with Boxer, Minerva with DP, Su Yong with Drake, Duplessis with Coley, and Leo. You go with Enzo, Yu Shen instructed, as everyone nodded in acknowledgement. The goal is to not let your partner get killed and score as many points as you can in the 60 minutes allotted for this stage. There will be 5,000 contestants in our pool, 4,990 of them enemies, and as per previous year averages, you need to score at least 200 points to qualify. But we are Rodova and we aim for the number 1 spot, so we are aiming for 500 eliminations. That comes to 100 eliminations per team, which everyone must complete, Yu Shen instructed, as he left no room for arguments or self-doubt. To be fair, 500 eliminations was a very tall target to achieve in under 60 minutes, however, Yu Shen believed in the philosophy of, aim small, miss small, which was why he believed that if he gave the team a 500 kill target to achieve, they may end up reaching 450. However, if he gave them a target of 450, they may only reach 400. Su Yang and Leo. The two of you need to be careful of what skills you put out tomorrow. You're both a blank slate for many, and if you can hide your skills in this preliminary round, it will be useful for you when the real difficult rounds begin. However, it's always more important to live in the present, so if you find yourself in a pinch, use it but don't get eliminated. Got it, Yu Shen said, as both Leo and Su Yang nodded. Finally and most importantly, use your heads. There's no point walking into ego traps here. If some area feels shady, if something smells of foul play or ambush, avoid it. Don't waste time falling into a stupid trap that will waste time for you and the team, costing us all points. Because I swear if I replay the tapes tomorrow night and watch any of you commit some sort of brain-dead fuckery, I will bench you for the next 3 fights. And won't call on you even if we are losing, got it? Yu Shen said, as the entire team replied in unison with a, yes, Captain. Good. Now let's huddle up and conclude the meeting. You're all free to spend the rest of your day as you like. But I expect you to be ready in your uniforms at 6 a.m. tomorrow morning, as although our match starts at 8 o'clock, we will arrive at 6 o'clock and watch Group A's match in full, Yu Shen said, as he gestured the team for a huddle, as on his count they all chanted at once. Strength above all. Heart beyond strength. Rodova forever. Sky God Arena, Group A preliminary round. The next morning, the Rodova team took their place high in the stands, surrounded by a sea of roaring spectators. Compared to the opening ceremony yesterday, the difference in crowd size today for the preliminaries was staggering. Every seat, from the front rows to the highest balconies, was packed, with only a few scattered vacancies where latecomers had yet to arrive. The air was electric. Flags bearing Academy crests waved from every direction, while merchants on the walkways sold limited edition merchandise and commemorative food packs. For the average citizen, this wasn't just a tournament, it was a once-in-a-year spectacle, and the universal government seemed to try hard to keep the atmosphere as energetic as possible, providing the guests with the best view and ambience. On the field below, 15 minutes before the fight began, the massive arena floor rumbled as it began to shift. And at that moment, "Good morning, ladies and gentlemen," boomed Derek Ray's voice through the enchanted speakers. "Welcome to the first day of the interstellar circuits. I'm Derek Ray, joined by the ever-insightful Lee Dixon. And what a day it will be, Derek," Lee replied smoothly, his voice igniting another wave of cheers. The duo had been the official commentators for the circuits for the past decade, and the crowd loved their insightful banter. Group A's preliminary elimination is set to begin in just 15 minutes, and I dare say the crowd is more than ready. As Derek and Lee hyped up the crowd, the battlefield almost completed its transformation. The plain steel beneath the arena cracked and reformed, as glowing mana circuits rearranged the surface like puzzle pieces. Moments later, a blinding flash of light engulfed the entire stage. When the light faded, the iconic tundra map had materialized, a harsh and unforgiving expanse of snow-covered plains, jagged ice mountains, treacherous pitfalls, and winding cave systems. Snowstorms swept across parts of the terrain, limiting visibility, while icy winds howled ominously. The field wasn't just for show either. Hidden cracks dotted the landscape, some of which could collapse without warning, plunging unlucky contestants into pits that triggered immediate eliminations. As the teams began entering the arena, every participant was enveloped by a soft glow. For those new to the circuits, you'll notice every contestant has been tagged by the mandatory teleportation seal, Derek explained. This seal will automatically eject a contestant the moment they suffer sufficient damage or a life-threatening injury. That's right, Lee added. Unlike street duels, death is not permitted here. Even if you get stabbed through the heart, the medics on standby can still save you, thanks to their advanced medical techniques and the pre-installed spell matrix. However, contestants aiming for eliminations are expected to avoid unnecessary brutality. While non-lethal eliminations like stabbing through the gut or shoulder are fair game, going for the kill, especially things like decapitation, is outright forbidden. And remember, Derek chimed in, points are only reliably awarded when contestants defeat opponents without excessive violence. Trying to look edgy by stabbing someone through the neck might not even give you a point if the judges frown on it. As the explanations wrapped up, the battle finally began. A loud horn blared, and chaos erupted. Hundreds of mages immediately took to the skies, hoping to gain an early advantage, but their enthusiasm was swiftly met with volleys of arrows, thrown lances, and spell fire, forcing many back to the ground in burning heaps. Swordmasters and martial artists swarmed through the snowy plains, while assassins used the blizzards and caves for guerrilla tactics. Ambushes, traps, and coordinated strikes unfolded at breakneck speed. Leo watched intently as two factions clashed by an icy ravine, where a group from Clarence Academy made quick work of a smaller academy, coordinating flawlessly with well-timed spells and spears that forced their enemies into a tight circle before their mage eliminated them all with a single wide-range spell. Clarence are more aggressive than usual this year, their confidence seems high, Su Yong muttered beside him, as Leo nodded without breaking his gaze. Soon, another skirmish flared to life near the western mountain range. There, Geneva Academy's team made their presence known. Su Ran himself led a squad of 4, systematically dismantling enemy teams with frightening precision. His spear danced between gaps in the enemy formation, picking them apart one by one, while his teammates provided perfect cover. "They're cutting through them like paper," Minerva commented. "The rumors weren't exaggerated," Yu Shen said bluntly. Su Ran and Geneva this year are very strong opposition. Yet for all the action below, Leo's eyes were calm, observing, calculating, absorbing every detail. He did not worry about meaningless things like what would happen if he faced one of the stronger warriors than him in battle, as thinking about hypotheticals was simply a waste of his time. Instead, what he focused on was how the other assassin-type fighters fought in the tundra and what were the types of techniques they used, as he kept an eye out for interesting battle strategies. Overall, all the assassin-type fighters seemed to have the same types of basic skills. A movement skill to weave through enemy attacks, or move silently. A short distance blink or dash. A concealing skill to blend into the environment, and a singular lethal strike meant to end fights in a single blow, the classic assassin toolkit. It was almost formulaic, but sometimes, he saw flashes of originality in those who refused to follow the textbook. An assassin from Volgrath Academy, for instance, used a self-made skill combo where he kicked up snow into the air before every engagement, by using a fist strike on the floor, masking his presence and movements amidst the storm, disorienting enemies who relied on vision alone. Another contestant, a beast folk from the Red Fang tribe, used his tail in tandem with his dual daggers, executing unpredictable triple strike combos that left opponents scrambling. And most impressive of all was a lone fighter from Ironheart Academy, who dared to forego stealth altogether. Instead, he mixed brute force into his assassination style, parrying direct attacks with a short sword while dispatching enemies with mana spell techniques, opting for control and precision over the traditional quick kills. These glimpses of creativity, while rare, were exactly what Leo was looking for. Good, Leo thought to himself. As it felt good to see such originality thrive in a universe where class roles were expected to be fixed and rigid. However, as much as he appreciated the lone creative fighter, in the end it were the traditional giants that scored the most points, as without any surprises, Geneva came first with 412 eliminations, Clarence a close second with 402, and Tulip third with 340. In the end, all the big academies made it through to the next round without a hitch, as although there were a few upsets down the table, with one of the academies seated in the low 200s somehow making it through to top 16 through a shock last 10 seconds double elimination. Most of the qualification table ended up to be predictable for Group A, with no major upsets or unexpected top academy eliminations this early into the tournament. Once Group A's match concluded at 7:15 sharp, Yushen immediately gathered the Rodova team and led them to the assigned changing rooms, with Major Hen and Professor David following closely behind. The changing rooms, much like everything else hastily built for the circuits, were cramped, just 10 small wall-mounted lockers per team. Still, given that they had to construct facilities for over 2,000 teams, the space constraint was understandable. "All right, my gear from the Phoenix group finally arrived," Su-Yang said with barely contained excitement, drawing every eye in the room. Instead of the standard team-issued armor, Su-Yang's locker held his custom order, and judging by his smug expression, it was exactly what he had been waiting for. "Oh my god, that hurts my eyes," Enzo groaned, shielding his face as he stared at the gaudy set. Su-Yang had chosen an outrageous golden and red color scheme that, while matching his golden eyes perfectly, was otherwise bright enough to be seen from orbit. "What the fuck is that armor, Yang? Are you trying to paint yourself as a goddamn target visible from a mile away?" Professor David barked, his voice sharp with disbelief, while Su-Yang simply smirked in response, looking unfazed by his words. "Circuit rules only require the Academy badge to be visible on all armor sets, while there are no other restrictions," Su-Yang replied smugly, pointing to the red Rodova Military Academy emblem on his armor set, as he took the piss out of David. "So long as that's there, the rest is none of your business," he said, clearly undermining David's authority, as the professor's left eye visibly twitched at the insult. "Listen, you little shit. You will not wear that eyesore in the forest map today. Save it for the individual rounds. As your instructor, I demand you take it off," David yelled. However, Su-Yang simply shrugged in non-compliance, as he brushed David's words aside as if he were nothing more than background noise. "Oh, fuck off. Like hell I'd listen to you," Su-Yang replied, as he continued to gear up in his gaudy armor, as David clenched his fists in a ball, before turning to Hen and Yushen for support. David hoped that since he was talking sensibly, one of them would at least back him. However, much to his dismay, both Hen and Yushen remained calmly indifferent to the subject, offering him no support, as he was forced to swallow his pride and back down. Everyone in the room knew David had a point, yet none dared to intervene. After all, Su-Yang wasn't technically breaking any rules, and nobody had the heart to rob him of his armor choice. "Ah, hell no," Leo muttered as he checked his own locker, already sensing something was off. Inside, instead of the pitch-black assassin armor he had requested, was a sleek dark gray and blue set. The base was a muted, near black gray, but what stood out, much to his annoyance, was a soft blue scarf draped around the neck plate. The armor was lightweight, flexible, and fit perfectly, exactly as specified in terms of function. But aesthetically, it wasn't what he wanted. It wasn't even what assassins usually wore. The design leaned closer to a fashionable military uniform than the standard assassin gear. "Holy shit, your armor looks very cool, Skyshard. That Horizon Dominion branding in light blue really pops," Minerva commented, clearly amused, as Leo's frown deepened. The Horizon Dominion group had been crafty with the armor badging. While the Rodova emblem was present, it was etched in dull black, nearly invisible against the dark gray armor, but still technically satisfying regulations. And in contrast, Horizon's own logo was printed in bold and crisp light blue, which stood out glaringly on his chest, wrist plates, neck scarf, and even on the hilt of every dagger he carried. Sigh. Leo sighed, realizing he looked less like an assassin and more like a walking advertising billboard, as he was covered in Horizon badging from head to toe. However, despite being a little pissed about wearing such an armor, Leo had to admit, it did look pretty damn good on him. If one ignored the blatant branding, the dark gray and blue dual tone matched perfectly with his fair skin and gray eyes, giving him a sharp, intimidating presence. More importantly, the armor provided excellent mobility, feeling like a second skin as he moved. Leo wasn't an expert in metallurgy, nor did he care to be, but even he could tell that this custom set was several kilograms lighter than Rodova's standard issue. He had no clue how the Horizon Dominion managed to make it this light without sacrificing protection, but he wasn't about to complain about free agility. Team Rodova, reporting time in 30 minutes. Please queue up for mandatory teleportation spell casting, a tournament organizer announced, prompting Yushen to gather the team. Without delay, they made their way to the nearest Transcendent Mage station, where each of them was marked with the standard emergency teleportation seal, a critical failsafe to eject them instantly from the arena if they took excessive damage or suffered a life-threatening injury, or were just eliminated in general. Once the process was complete, they lined up near their assigned entry gate, eyes drifting toward the massive countdown clock above the tunnel, steadily ticking away the minutes. 0 hours 5 minutes and 49 seconds. Yu Shen stood at the front, projecting calm and authority as he addressed the team one last time. This will be a walk in the park. The average opponent you'll face here won't even come close to the average classmates you have left behind in Rodova, so don't panic even if a few surround you. His eyes swept over the team, voice firm but steady. Just remember to keep your heads open, and more importantly, watch out for your teammates. We don't need any heroes. We need points. He raised a finger for emphasis. I want 100 points from each duo. No excuses. Got it? Yu Shen demanded, as the team nodded and cheered in response. His speech helped kill some time and eased the team members' nerves, as when the clock dipped below 0 hours 1 minute and 59 seconds, Yu Shen called for the team to huddle around him once again. Okay, come on, one last chant before we go out. We are Rodova, and today we must fight with the pride of the 55 wins our academy has previously scored, Yu Shen said, as he huddled the team around himself, as they let out one last chant in unison. Strength above all, heart beyond strength, Rodova forever. As with that, the clock timer finally hit 0 hours 0 minutes and 0 seconds, and the gates opened, allowing the Rodova team to enter the forest map from their designated entry gate. Nobody wasted a second after the gate opened, as within 5 seconds, the 5 Rodova team subgroups spread out in all directions looking for prey to kill. Leo, focused and locked in, was hungry to score some crucial points, when not even 15 seconds into the preliminary round starting, he felt a hand being placed on his shoulder, by his senior teammate Enzo. I'm the senior here, Skyshard, let me take the lead on where to go and fight, so that we can avoid unnecessary traps. I've trained in the jungle during our summer camp. So trust me, I know what I'm doing, Enzo said, as he tried to play the role of a reliable senior. However, Leo just shook his head in dismissal and threw a couple daggers near the nearby tree branch, as a hidden enemy suddenly fell down from the branch, being eliminated from the preliminary round. Huh, where did he come from? Enzo mused in shock, as Leo simply tapped on his head like he were a little lost puppy. Do you have absolute vision that can see everything happening in your surroundings without leaving any blind spots? Can you spot enemies hidden behind trees, leaves, or those that dig holes in the ground to hide? Leo asked, as Enzo shook his head in denial. I thought so. So please shut up and don't slow me down, because I already know where the next 15 enemies are around us, and I can probably kill them all in under 5 minutes, Leo said, as he turned and locked in on the hunt once again, forcing Enzo to follow him around like a toothless puppy. Sky God Arena, Group B Preliminary Round. 15 minutes into the preliminary round, Team Rodova had a commanding lead on the top of the points table, as even the commentators began praising them. 15 minutes into Group B's fight, and Rodova is showing no signs of slowing down. Derek Ray's voice boomed across the arena. They've already scored 150 eliminations and are on an unstoppable roll. What do you have to say about their performance so far, Lee? Absolutely magnificent, Derek, Lee replied smoothly. They've adopted a hyper-offensive strategy, breaking into 5 smaller groups, each dominating a different section of the forest map, and while it's a very risky play, it's paying off big time for them. Just look at that 40-point gap over the number 2 team from the start, Lee praised, as all the Rodova supporters in the crowd cheered loudly. This was exactly the sort of dominating performance that they had come here hoping for, and so far their favorite team was delivering as expected. Meanwhile, down on the battlefield, Leo moved like a shadow. Thanks to absolute vision, every opponent within his skill zone stood exposed to him as if under a spotlight, as it was only today that Leo profusely thanked Professor Powell for all his perception classes, as he felt like it was all paying off now. Back as a student, he often wondered if he needed to practically train his perception skill to such a degree. However, standing within this forest map today, Leo could not be any more grateful for the practice. He could notice all the enemies in his vicinity, and as he approached a new section of the map, he saw 5 of them spread in a small area. Hidden behind a thick oak, 20 meters away, Leo picked up on the location of the Griffin Academy students, who had prepared a textbook ambush. 2 archers were hidden high among the trees, their bows taut and ready, and below them, 2 heavily armored tanks stood seemingly relaxed, posing as bait in a small clearing. To an unobserving fool, it might look like the 2 tanks were alone. However, Leo saw the whole setup and even the 5th variable. As near a thicket close by, an assassin lurked in the shadows, eyes trained entirely on the clearing where unsuspecting teams might stumble in trying to take on the tanks. Idiots, Leo mused, as he explained their positions to Enzo, before pointing him in the direction of one of the archers. That one archer is yours, take him down without making a commotion and I'll handle the rest, he instructed, as the duo parted ways. Immediately, Leo activated Vanish, disappearing from common sight like mist under moonlight, as he soundlessly creeped behind the assassin hiding in the thicket. The Griffin Academy assassin, confident in his hiding position, never even noticed Leo silently closing in from behind, as his attention remained stupidly locked on the 2 tanks ahead. Thump! By the time he realized something was off, Leo's dagger had already pierced clean through his back, snuffing out his presence instantly as the teleportation seal activated. Meanwhile, Enzo charged toward one of the archers. However, unlike Leo, he wasn't as precise or clean with his movement and kill. The archer sensed him coming and began firing desperate shots for protection, forcing Enzo into a hectic scuffle. Shua! Shua! Snap! Arrows flew, branches broke, as the 2 engaged in a noisy scuffle, the commotion drawing the attention of the 2 tanks and the remaining archer towards their fight. Come on! Randall needs our help, one of the tanks urged, drawing the Jumbotron camera with him, as somehow the main camera decided that this was the fight to broadcast at this moment. However, unaware of the wider attention this altercation was receiving at this moment, Leo moved in for the kill on the 2 tanks whose backs were turned towards him. Slash! Asterisk. With surgical precision, Leo danced past tree trunks and underbrush, his movements a blur, as before the tanks even registered his approach, their teleportation seals flashed, ejecting them one after another as Leo eliminated them both with a single slash. Gasp! The audience gasped collectively at the sudden elimination, as just like the tanks, even the audience never saw Leo's incoming attack, until it was too late. What was that? How did they even get eliminated? How many enemies? The audience wondered, as the camera angle finally cut to Leo, who was now hunting down the last archer. Shua! Shua! Leo threw his daggers towards the running archer, who seemed desperate to bail out of this fight and survive by moving to another section of the forest. However, unfortunately for him, Leo's daggers found their mark in his back, as he too was eliminated from the preliminary round, with Leo lodging yet another kill under his name. That's 4 more, Leo mused, with the arena screens catching it all, as for the first time, the entire universe saw live footage of Leo Skyshard in action. Dash 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 dash. That's Leo Skyshard from Rodova. Derek exclaimed. A wildcard replacement who wasn't even part of the main roster until recently. But just look at that form on that dagger throw, absolutely flawless. And if you notice, Lee added, Horizon Dominion's badge on his armor tells you everything you need to know about this young chap. Horizon doesn't sign just anyone. So we would advise our audience to keep your eyes open for this kid, he's a superstar in the making. Listening to the commentators talk about Leo, the crowd erupted. Who is that cool assassin? Gasped a young student in the stands. He looks like a superhero. Skyshard isn't a noble name, an older spectator mused. Did Horizon really sign a kid with no big family background? I don't care who he is, he's very fast, a seasoned watcher muttered. Reminds me of the old Rodova team captain Kosova Blaine from 25 years ago. That guy had the fastest feet I've ever seen. One after another, audience members discussed Leo and various aspects of his fighting and fit, as the name, Leo Skyshard, entered the public consciousness for the first time. It wasn't a huge impact, however, his performance was enough for people to keep an eye out for him from now on. Across another section of the forest, Yushen calmly controlled a dense tree cluster. His blade flowed like water as he dispatched 2 enemies from Ironhide Academy, their clunky armor proving worthless against Yushen's pinpoint strikes. Yushen looks as sharp as ever, Lee commented. His control over the mid-map region is picture perfect. Meanwhile on the other side of the map, Suyong blazed through 3 opponents of his own. His red and gold armor practically glowed as he spun his sword with unmatched elegance, tripping one and finishing the others with clean thrusts. And with another point scored for Rodova by Suyong, the Rodova Military Academy now sit comfortably at 390 eliminations with 15 minutes left on the clock, Derek announced. They're inching close to Geneva's record of 450. Can they pull it off? He asked, as with 15 minutes left on the clock, the only question remaining now was whether or not Rodova could outscore Geneva in the preliminary round. The seconds ticked away, and with every passing moment, the end of the Group B preliminary round drew closer. Most of the weaker contestants had already been culled, leaving behind only the determined and the desperate. Especially among those from lower-ranked academies, whose teams hadn't yet secured a qualifying spot, desperation had fully set in now, driving them to fight recklessly for every last point and somehow attempt qualification. Incoming group of 4 opponents. One of them is a Grandmaster, Leo said calmly, as his eyes tracked an approaching squad through absolute vision. They're stronger than what you can handle. Hide behind that tree, and only step in if I call for backup. Leo instructed, as Enzo did not hesitate. Nodding quickly, he slipped behind a nearby tree, leaving Leo to face the enemies alone. All halt, the enemy team leader commanded, raising a hand when they approached Leo, as he prevented the team members behind him from recklessly engaging. It was at this moment that Leo recognized the familiar insignia on their armor, the green-etched emblem of Nature Military Academy, and the man leading them is the elf swordsman he had seen briefly during their friendly spar against Rodova a few months ago. Leave him, the elf captain ordered, that's a Rodova warrior. Without further question, the squad paused briefly to assess Leo, but upon confirming his affiliation, they simply moved around him, unwilling to waste time on an ally when there were less than 5 minutes on the clock. They left without drawing their weapons. However, as their backs turned, Leo instinctively felt the urge to strike. With their guards down and their formation open, they were perfect targets, as somehow Leo found his fingers subconsciously coiling around the hilt of his dagger, as he carefully adjusted his aim. Should I do it? Leo thought, as the temptation gnawed at him. But before he could throw, the Nature Academy captain subtly turned his head and locked eyes with him, as he dared Leo to follow through with that throw. Bring it, his gaze dared, as Leo froze. Under the elves, in spoken challenge, Leo's dagger stayed at his side, muscles tensing as he instinctively backed down. Yet his mind buzzed with excitement. That's interesting, so very very interesting, Leo muttered under his breath, sheathing his dagger as he signaled Enzo to step out of hiding. The prey had walked away, but it wasn't fear that stopped Leo from making that strike. It was instinct. It was his primal instincts whispering in his head that this wasn't the time to hunt if the enemy had already spotted his intent. As Leo felt pretty sure that if the elf captain did not catch him at the right moment, he would have most likely gone for a squad wipe, despite their alliance, as there was no way in hell that he passed up on 4 easy kills otherwise. Seconds ticked by, and Leo barely found 3 more targets to eliminate in the last 5 minutes, as a loud horn signaled the end of round 2. Blare. Following the horn, all contestants still alive within the forest were immediately teleported outside, as the final top 16 spots were locked in. And that's it, ladies and gentlemen, Rodova has done it. Derek Ray's voice boomed across the stadium, cutting through the cheers. Rodova surpasses Geneva's record with a staggering 475 eliminations. Is this the year they finally take back the crown after more than 2 decades of heartbreak? Truly incredible, Derek, Lee chimed in, voice brimming with excitement. They came out swinging from the very first second and never took their foot off the gas. We've seen aggressive plays in preliminaries before, but Rodova's 5-squad split this time was absolutely fearless. They executed their game plan with the discipline and sharpness you only expect from championship-caliber teams, as the Rodova team this year seems ready to challenge for the crown. Lee said, as the crowd responded with thunderous applause. Not to mention, Lee continued, with performances like 88 eliminations by Captain Yu Shen alone today, you can't help but feel like this Rodova team has more to show us in the later rounds. Their adaptability on the forest map was textbook perfect. Absolutely, Derek agreed. And while Rodova steals the headlines, let's not forget about our runners-up, Nature Military Academy, who came in second place with 301 eliminations, securing their spot in the main rounds comfortably. And in third place, Lee added, we have the Ironblood Academy with 288 eliminations, which is still a very respectable showing given how chaotic this preliminary turned out to be. But perhaps the most pleasant surprise, Derek pointed out, was the qualification of Ironfrost Academy, seated all the way down at 380th coming into this year's circuits, yet managing to clutch their spot with 61 eliminations, scraping into the top 16. And it wasn't just luck either, Derek, Lee said. Their swordsman, Hikari, I believe, was absolutely electric in the closing stages, pulling off a last-minute triple elimination to get them over the line. A young prodigy, it seems. We'll definitely be watching him closely when Group B advances to the main bracket, Derek commented. As the crowd buzzed with mixed reactions, some cheered for the underdogs while others discussed Rodova's dominating performance. Back in the teleportation area, cheers and celebrations for Rodova's strong preliminary round showing already began, as the team members quickly found each other before jumping onto Captain Yu Shen, who looked very proud of his gang. I know I asked for 500. But I guess I'll make do with 475, Yu Shen said with an approving grin, as everyone burst into cheers. Before the preliminary round started, none of them thought that 500 was an achievable score, however, somehow they came very close to hitting it. Yu Shen alone eliminated 88 opponents, while Leo was close behind in second with 84. Su Yong got 72 and Minerva 66, as all 4 of their teams completed the 100 eliminations target and then some. However, it was the 5th duo with no Grandmaster Warrior amidst them that could only manage 47 eliminations total, dragging the team's overall score down to 475. Nonetheless, with them surpassing Geneva, Yu Shen was still content, as he gave everyone praises and pats on the shoulder along with a few encouraging words to keep up the good work. The undercurrents of Rodova's dominant win in Group B rippled far beyond the cheering crowds and the celebratory atmosphere inside the Sky God Arena. Just as Rodova had quietly watched Group A's preliminary round early this morning, now it was Geneva, Clarence, and other top academies who sat with sharp focus, analyzing every move made by their competitors. Gu Ramos, Geneva's captain, leaned forward slightly, arms crossed as his eyes locked onto the Jumbotron replay of Rodova's performance. His expression was stoic, but the subtle tension in his jaw betrayed his unease. We knew Yu Shen was very strong, but those 2 first years are beyond our expectations. I know Su Ran warned me about his younger brother potentially making it to the team, and that he was a real talent. However, it's just absurd that he's so strong so fast. And it's not just him alone. That Leo Skyshard kid is a real menace too, Ramos remarked, his voice quiet but firm. Beside him, Geneva's academy strategist and instructor was already typing furiously into his terminal, pulling up whatever fragments of footage they had managed to gather. Don't worry, Ramos. I had someone tail all 10 members of Rodova during the prelims. The forest map made clean footage hard to come by, but we still got enough to extract valuable data points. We'll have clippings ready for analysis by tonight, the instructor assured, as Ramos gave her a silent nod, his black eyes narrowing. Yu Shen's dominance was expected, everyone knew he was the backbone of Rodova, but Leo Skyshard. That wildcard replacement who wasn't even on their radar a month ago. That was alarming. And more importantly, Leo wasn't just present, he was almost on par with Yu Shen in terms of performance, who was already one of their biggest nightmares this year. Bad. I'm getting bad vibes from this, Ramos commented, as he felt his stomach turn with unease. Meanwhile, within the upper offices of the Universal Government's Military Command Division, an old commander sat lazily behind his desk, smoke curling up from a thick cigar wedged between his fingers. The commander's eyes were locked onto the TV screen in front of him as he watched this year's preliminary circuit unfold with a keen interest. However, instead of listening to the commentators analyze and break down the previous match before the next one started, he chose to call in old Junior instead, as he made a secure video call from his office phone. Ulrich, goddamn it, the commander chuckled the moment Principal Ulrich's hologram appeared. You've sent a team of roaring lions this year. Ha ha ha, what an early showing, he complimented, as Ulrich, the ever-composed gentleman that he was, immediately responded with a military salute befitting of greeting a senior, before responding politely and in a professional tone. We were fortunate, sir. The students performed admirably. Fortunate. Cut the modesty, the commander waved dismissively, puffing out a cloud of smoke. Yu Shen, that high-born brat of the Yu clan was born for this. We already knew his potential after last year. But that newcomer, Leo Skyshard, now that was a surprise. The commander leaned closer to his console. Tell me, what's his story? Ulrich exhaled slowly, as he knew what the commander's interest in one of his students meant. The commander wanted his full history, right from his admission to his current power level, and Ulrich gave it all without a hitch. Wiped memory, sir. We presume he's a Mu clan descendant. As you're aware, the clan has a history of sending their young ones into the universe stripped of memory to temper their instincts. Other than that, he's a hard worker and a monarch-level talent. Breezed through to Grandmaster realm without a hitch, Ulrich reported as the commander chuckled. Mu clan, huh? Those sly bastards always produce the best warriors. Central's got their eyes on him already. They want to take him in if he continues to perform well, which is why I pulled his academy records myself. His physical stats are off the damn charts, Ulrich, I mean, what's up with his absurd reflexes? The commander asked, as Ulrich's grin widened from the other end. His reflexes are the best in academy history. And his growth rate is absurd. If he's this strong as a first year, I'm feeling very confident that no one will be able to scratch him at the circuits next year if he continues on his current trajectory, Ulrich responded, as the commander let out another giant ball of smoke. He's the type of talent that the Universal Army needs. Recruitment staff have already started to take notice of him, and while his offer letter is not guaranteed yet, I presume that when the time comes for him to choose his future career options, you will do your best to drive him towards the Universal Army, the commander said, raising an eyebrow, as Ulrich immediately responded with a salute. Of course, sir, there's no better place than the Universal Army for a young recruit like him. I'll of course guide him to the best of my abilities, Ulrich replied, as the commander began chuckling once again. Bahahaha, good, very good, that's why I like you so much, the commander said, as his eyes turned mirthful for 1 second before turning stone cold the next. Send me his psychological evaluation records. And help me determine which branch of the Mu clan he's from. If he's from the main clan, we might face resistance recruiting him into our fold, given the standoff between the 6 great clans and the Universal Government. However, as long as he's out of the race for the position of Patriarch, he's fair game for the Universal Government to recruit, the commander demanded, as Ulrich saluted and nodded once again. It will be done, sir. Ulrich assured, as the call disconnected. With just a brief display of his strength, Leo had already stirred the waters, drawing the attention of hungry wolves who now circled him like prey. Yet, with the spotlight came inevitable scrutiny. And while everything seemed bright and promising for now, it was only a matter of time before someone started digging too deeply, and when they did, the buried skeletons of his past risked clawing their way back into the light. Skeletons that Leo couldn't afford being exposed at this stage of his life. Rodova Team Villa, the terrace. Leo sat alone atop the terrace of the Rodova Team Villa in the middle of the night, as sleep no longer held the same grip on him since his breakthrough to Grandmaster. He gazed up at the stars, their cold brilliance scattered across the night sky, as the silhouette of the massive sky god arena loomed quietly in the distance. The air was sharp and biting, yet strangely calming, as Leo soaked in the stillness of the night, searching for a fragment of peace within the storm brewing inside him. He had beads of sweat forming on his forehead despite the coldness of his environment, as despite the serene atmosphere he found himself in, Leo just couldn't remove the thought of his family being in danger out of his head. Please hold on, mother. I'll come to save you soon, Leo thought to himself, as he tried to reassure his anxious heart that everything would soon be okay. Swoop. At that moment, something flashed from the corner of his eyes, as Leo instinctively activated absolute vision. For a second he felt his senses blare on high alert, as he wondered if an enemy was stalking him. However, minutes passed by and he neither saw any enemy, nor did he notice any movement in his vicinity, which made him wonder if his previous alarm had just been a hallucination. Could I just be getting paranoid? Leo wondered, as he did not think that someone could enter his field of vision and then move out of it completely undetected within half a second. However, at this point in his life he was unaware of the speed at which transcendent warriors traveled. 0.5 seconds. That's how long it took him to notice the irregularity and activate absolute vision. However, there was nobody suspicious in his vicinity by that time. Leo thought that maybe it were just his nerves that were on edge tonight. However, what he did not perceive was that it was the evil cult moving into action. Sky God Arena, Maintenance Level 7, Restricted Zone. Duwan and Lu Wan, two veteran security officers of the Sky God Arena, moved with silent efficiency through the dimly lit maintenance tunnels beneath the arena. They had just picked up the restricted package from the surface just under a minute ago, and were now veering off their usual patrol route to complete their mission. To the world, they were ordinary security personnel, loyal transcendent level warriors serving under the Order of the Righteous Alliance. Where their clan names alone, Du and Lu, commanded respect within the Alliance's inner circles. But beneath the polished surface, they were something far more different. Disgruntled by their clan's cruel practices and civilian oppression, they hated their family as much as any other commoner, which had pushed them to embrace the Cult of Ascension's ideology years ago. They were sleeper agents of the Cult of Ascension, who had embedded themselves within the system for over a decade, waiting for the right chance to strike. For years, they had operated as model officers, never giving anyone reason to doubt their allegiance, their infiltration being completely flawless. They had witnessed countless tournaments, laughed at jokes during patrols with other normal guards, and had even received medals for their exemplary service. And yet tonight, as the instructions they had been eagerly waiting for years finally arrived, they ditched their usual act in an instant, and became agents of the cult instead. Their mission was as simple as it was devastating, which was to plant the enchanted bombs onto the platform-changing array buried beneath the arena floor. Given to them were inconspicuous metal plates, no different from ordinary steel parts at first glance. However, each one was inscribed with forbidden runes and hidden under layers of anti-detection enchantments, making them invisible to even the most advanced surveillance spells and formations. These plates are the real deal, Duwan muttered, inspecting one under the flickering tunnel lights. Even the Central Command's detection formation wouldn't pick up on these. Lu Wan nodded silently, adjusting the plates under his arm. Neither of them spoke further, as they knew better than to tempt fate by getting careless this close to the finish line. According to their intelligence report, other agents of the cult had taken care of the patrol officers responsible for monitoring the underground floors for a short window of 3 minutes. Which was the time window they now had to successfully execute their mission without being detected. With throbbing hearts, they followed the maze-like tunnels beneath the Sky God Arena, until they reached the massive core array. Before them stood the colossal platform-changing mechanism, a marvel of modern engineering and mana circuitry, and the core of the Sky God Arena's versatility that gave it the ability to change arena floors at will. As without hesitation, they got to work. Duwan methodically affixed one of the bombs onto one of the retracting support bases, right around a hinge, where the plate blended with its surroundings naturally and looked like it was a part of the design. Perfect, he muttered to himself, as when he inspected the mechanism while testing for mana flow, where he could not sense any mana leaking from the bomb at all, with the bomb feeling like it was just a regular steel part. Lu Wan mirrored his partner's actions on another retractable base, embedding the second plate deep within the mechanical structure, as the duo repeated the process over and over again on a majority of the bases, until they ran out of bombs to affix. The bombs didn't glow, didn't hum, didn't even shift the mana flow around them, as they were simply perfectly disguised. Once all of them were secured, Duwan and Lu Wan exchanged a subtle nod and quietly exited the restricted zone, retracing their steps with the same calm and professionalism that they had shown for years, as they completed their task within 2 minutes at best. As they emerged back into the general maintenance corridors, blending once again with the dozens of other known staff members wandering about, they tipped their hats and exchanged knowing smiles without acting suspicious. As the staff replied with the same politeness, with nobody suspecting anything out of the ordinary. "We've done it. No alarms blaring yet. I think we've got away with it," Lu Wan said with joy, as Duwan smirked beside him. They weren't sure if such a mission could even be pulled off, as there were security cameras and patrol officers always monitoring the various levels under the arena at all times. However, the instructions they received from the cult were clear. They were supposed to do their part in the plan, and have faith that the other members of the cult would do theirs, making the mission a success. And success it seemed, at least as of yet. "So, when does it go off?" Lu Wan asked in a low voice, as Duwan didn't even glance at him, keeping his gaze forward. "We don't know. The activation remote is in the hands of the elders," he replied, as a chill settled between them, not from fear, but from anticipation. The bomb could go off at any point in the future now. Maybe it went off tomorrow, maybe it went off the day after. However, one thing was for sure, that soon the entire universe would once again witness the chaos that the evil cult had been patiently preparing for all these years. After the preliminary rounds, came the real deal. The actual 5 vs 5 Interstellar Circuits tournament, featuring the 64 qualified teams in a brutal single elimination bracket. There were no second chances here, no safety nets. Lose once, and you were out, making upsets a big possibility in this tournament. However, although in principle all participating teams had an equal chance to reach the finals, in practice it was anything but. With the matchups being decided through a top seeding system, a tradition in the interstellar circuits designed to reward those who excelled in the preliminary round, the tournament heavily favored the best performing teams to advance furthest in the tournament, protecting them from early upset knockouts. Simply put, the higher you scored in the preliminaries, the better your seed, and the weaker your first-round opponent. The first seed would face the 64th, the second would face the 63rd, and so on. And this year, after years of struggling to keep up with Geneva, Rodova Military Academy stood proudly as the #1 seed, thanks to their staggering 475 eliminations in Group B, surpassing even Geneva Military Academy, who settled for second place with 460. With the seeds now locked, the two most feared teams in the tournament, Rodova and Geneva, were placed on opposite ends of the bracket, not likely to face each other unless both teams made their way all the way through to the finals. This arrangement was no accident. The brackets were designed to ensure that the strongest teams would not cross paths until the late stages of the tournament, most likely the semi-finals or the grand finale. However, although the best matchups were reserved for the last days of the circuits, the crowd still buzzed with energy this morning, as they felt eager to watch the actual circuits kick off. Dash 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 dash. Sky God Arena, first round of the circuits. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the opening match of this year's Interstellar Circuits main tournament. Derek announced enthusiastically. I'm Derek Ray, joined as always by my brilliant co-host, Lee Dixon. And what a way to kick things off, Derek, Lee replied smoothly, grinning. It's the number 1 seed, Rodova Military Academy, stepping into the arena against the 64th seed, Sunflower Military Academy. The camera panned across the audience, showing cheering fans, academy flags, and vibrant energy as the massive arena beneath them began its transformation. Rumble. The arena floor shifted, plates rearranging themselves as glowing circuits carved patterns along the ground, as within seconds, the stage morphed into the infamous Edge Park Arena, known for its hazardous terrain. The entire battlefield resembled a jagged wasteland, sharp stone spires jutting from the earth like fangs. It was a very difficult terrain to fight for mobility fighters, given how it was an uneven surface, riddled with spikes and crags that left little room for flat footing. And the battlefield for the first fight is the infamous Edge Park Arena. Derek exclaimed. This arena is absolutely littered with sharp, pointed rocks that act like nature's own minefield. It's a map that punishes anyone that doesn't have the absolute best footwork, agility, and map control. It's a very punishing map, Derek, Lee added. One misstep and you could impale yourself on a rock. Fighters will have to be careful not only of their opponent but of the very ground beneath their feet. As the arena stabilized, the big screen lit up with the fighter introductions, showing short clips from the preliminary rounds alongside each name. Fighting for Rodova today is one of their 4 Grandmaster Warriors and their star archer, Minerva, Derek announced as Minerva's highlight reel displayed her gracefully taking down multiple opponents during the preliminaries. She'll be supported by DP, Coley, Enzo, and Boxer. An interesting choice, which leaves out Captain Yu Shen and the 2 first-year Enigmas, Su Yong and Leo Skyshard, out of their lineups for this match, he commented, much to the dismay of the crowd, who booed this choice heavily. Well, Derek, Lee replied, Rodova must be bloody confident in this lineup if the captain himself isn't even stepping onto the field today. Let's see if that confidence pays off, or backfires spectacularly. Dash 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 dash. The match began with Minerva stepping forward first against Sunflower's opening fighter and captain, a dual-bladed swordsman. Swoosh. Minerva wasted no time as the opening bell rang, as she used her superior agility and precision to pin her opponent down before he ever had the chance to approach her. Swoosh. Swoosh. She peppered the opponent with arrows, forcing him to step around the sharp rocks, as eventually, her opponent made a mistake when he lost her footing, which instantly caused him to be impaled by 2 arrows to the chest. Thud, thud, first blood for Rodova, Derek shouted. And look at how Minerva used the environment, classic Edge Park exploitation. The fight wasn't over yet, because the opponent's armor took the brunt of the attack and he looked like he was able to continue. However, a couple seconds later, as he crumpled to his knees and coughed a mouthful of blood, the referee called an end to the match, declaring the kneeling warrior to be unfit to continue. Ooh, Nixon is unable to continue. Minerva scores the first win for Rodova. Will she continue to fight the second opponent? Or will she switch? Lee commented, as Minerva tagged out of the second fight, sending Boxer to face the second opponent instead. Dash 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 dash. The second opponent from Sunflower Academy was a tank, making Boxer the perfect opponent to face him. Boxer, being a close-range brawler, negated the opponent's advantage as a tank, as he dragged the fight into a deep exchange of blows and test of stamina, as although his fight lasted a full 7 minutes, eventually he won it with a knockout punch to the opponent's face. Dash 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 dash. Following Boxer, Enzo took the stage, showing remarkable footwork by weaving through the hazardous terrain while disarming his opponent with a sword strike that sent him stumbling straight into a bed of pointed rocks. Crash. Just the fall proved to be enough to incapacitate the opponent, as Enzo scored a win in under 25 seconds. Rodova's 3rd straight win. Derek cheered. And Enzo doing what he does best, creating openings where none seemed to exist. Coley came next, employing a mix of defensive tactics and environment manipulation, forcing his opponent into exhaustion before tripping them backward into a sharp ridge, securing another clean victory. Match time 12 minutes 34 seconds. Finally, DP closed it out, outclassing the last of Team Sunflower's members with a brutal combination of sword arts and positional control, incapacitating the opponent through a series of deep sword gashes and muscle-cutting wounds, until he was unable to move a muscle anymore. "And that's it," Derek exclaimed. A 5-0 rout. Rodova advances cleanly into the round of 32 without losing a single fighter. The crowd erupted, chanting, "Rodova! Rodova!" as the Rodova team stood tall atop the Edge Park Arena. "Well, Lee," Derek added, "if today's performance is anything to go by, this Rodova team means business, and to think, they haven't even called their trump cards yet. If you're Geneva or Clarence, you better start preparing already." "Agreed, Derek. With the heavy hitters still sitting on the bench, you have to wonder just how deep this team really is and just who they will send to crush the unfortunate opponent they face tomorrow. Ha ha ha, Rodova is going to soon become the bookie's safe choice to make money." Sky God Arena, the contestant viewing stands. Yu Shen watched the rest of the Rodova team dominate calmly from the front row bleachers, the best seats in the house, positioned just meters away from the battlefield. He clapped and cheered along with the crowd, though his thoughts were far more calculating than celebratory. He knew better than anyone that for most of the teammates fighting today, this would likely be their first and last appearance on the circuit stage. As the ever-merciful captain, Yu Shen had deliberately allowed them this opportunity, giving each one a chance to bask in the spotlight, score a few eliminations, and perhaps even catch the attention of sponsors who might change their futures. But in truth, except for Minerva, none of today's fighters were part of his envisioned strongest lineup. He had no intention of fielding them again when the round of 32 arrived tomorrow. Instead, he already planned to deploy the others, the ones who had yet to step onto the stage, giving them their share of exposure before the real struggle began in the later rounds. However, all these internal thoughts were for himself. He did not share them with his team, as he was simply all smiles and praises when they returned in the team warm-up area. "Good job guys, good fighting. You made Rodova proud," he said, clapping them on the shoulders, as he took joy in their joy and became a part of their life's core memory. However, Leo was different. Unlike the captain who fraternized with everyone, Leo kept to himself in a corner, wondering when he could return to the stands to watch the unfolding action again. As for him, watching the other matches seemed way more important than this pointless team celebration. Captain, permission to return to the stands, please," Leo said eventually, when he saw that the celebrations were never ending, to which Yu Shen replied with a steady nod, as Leo bailed almost instantly. Returning to the viewing stands, Leo settled into his seat just as the second match between Geneva and Biscoff Academy began, with Geneva already holding an expected 1-0 lead. Much like Rodova earlier, it seemed Geneva had chosen to withhold its strongest fighters for now, fielding mostly master-level warriors instead. Yet, despite the apparent parity of fighter tiers on paper, the difference in skill was undeniable between both sides. The Geneva representatives dominated the battlefield with clinical precision, making the Biscoff team look like little more than target dummies as they dismantled them one by one. And this is why Derek, training and environment does make a huge difference in how a warrior performs. As just look at the difference between the training facilities at Geneva versus Biscoff Academy, Lee said, as the Jumbotron showcased side-by-side photos of both academies' training grounds. While the Geneva Academy grounds looked like the most modern and high-tech facility around, with all sorts of weighted vests and different running trails built for endurance runs. The Biscoff Academy training grounds was just a muddy field with old rusty equipment that looked like it had not been refurbished in over a decade. And that's why it's important for academies to consistently score high within the circuits. The monetary grant for the winners and runner-up academies are huge, but even more importantly they get access to the best genetic awakening serum shots, Derek added, as he reminded the audience about the underlying stakes beneath the circuits. In the end, Geneva Military Academy also wiped the floor with their opponents 5-0, as they cruised into round of 32 with ease. Leo remained in the stands for the rest of the day, quietly observing each of the following matches without missing a moment. The only company he had were Professor David and me and Fay, both of whom were tasked with meticulously recording every fight. Their role wasn't just administrative, the footage was to be reviewed thoroughly by the Rodova team later that night, dissected for patterns, weaknesses, and strategies as they prepared for the rounds ahead. Leo fully expected neither David nor Fay to initiate a conversation with him in such a public setting. However, much to his surprise, it was David who began chatting with him as the day progressed. "Did you catch the movement of that mage? Skyshard. He's using a spell called Blitz Steps coupled with Mirror World to confuse his opponent about his real location. His real body has already shifted his position 7 times by now, circling all the way to the opponent's back. However, the foolish opponent is still looking for him in the front," David pointed out, as Leo nodded. "I can track him using absolute vision. I know his real body from the fake," Leo replied, to which David nodded with understanding. "That's why we teach you perception as a mandatory first-year course, so that illusions of such crude level won't work on you." However, this same setup if used by a Grandmaster tier fighter or a Transcendent tier fighter would yield a very different outcome. The speed boost generated by Blitz Steps is not small, and if your cycling speed for absolute vision is not fast enough, it will trick your senses into seeing things that are not. Which is why, always double-check for shadows when the sun is shining high. If you look closely, only the real mage has a shadow, while the rest don't, David taught, as he shared his veteran experiences with Leo rather candidly. For a moment, it felt weird to Leo that David was teaching him something useful out of the blue, as it almost seemed like David had left all the animosity he felt towards Leo back at the academy. However, it wasn't until the last and most thrilling fight of the evening concluded, that David finally revealed his true colors. Clapping his hands hard once, he turned towards Leo with his usual grumpy look, as all the insightful moments that the two shared throughout the day seemed to not matter anymore now. "I've finally figured out how you cheated in my exam. It kept bothering me for weeks as to how you did it. However, talking to you today I finally know how. Your cycle speed for absolute vision has already hit perfection, which means you can trace pencil writing with ease. That's how you cheated in my exam, and while I can't prove your crime for a previous date, I'll sure as hell make sure you can't use the same trick twice in the finals," David said, as Leo let out a hearty laugh. Apparently, David's intention behind all that insightful talk was to gauge Leo's abilities, and Leo had unwittingly played right into his hands. "You're funny, Professor. I'm definitely not a cheater," Leo replied, walking past him, as he refused to acknowledge any wrongdoing he may or may not have done in the past. To be fair, he hadn't expected David to still be obsessing over the midterms after all these weeks, as if he knew that the professor was this petty, he would have been more careful. Nonetheless, it was a lesson learnt, as he vowed to himself to not let his true insights slip even in a casual setting from now on. Rodova Team Villa. The atmosphere inside the Rodova Team Villa's living room still buzzed with excitement from the day's victory, though hardly anyone seemed to care about the tactical clippings playing on the large wall-mounted monitor. "Did you guys see me shove that brat over the edge today? He came at me like, wham, and I just sidestepped and gave him a little push, POW. Straight into the pit," Boxer said, laughing dramatically as he reenacted the moment. "Yeah, that fall was nasty," DP chimed in. "Poor guy broke both rock and bone. He never even stood back up. Ha ha, what a win," Enzo added. "You looked seriously cool." The team erupted into more laughter, caught up in replaying their highlight moments. However, Leo, seated quietly in the corner, found himself genuinely irritated by their behavior. Instead of focusing on improving, preparing for the next match, or dissecting valuable insights from today's footage, they wasted time bragging about past exploits. It all seemed like pointless noise to him. Well, that's enough, Yu Shen's sharp voice cut through the chatter. Eyes on the screen. The room fell silent at once as all heads turned toward the captain. Our opponents tomorrow are Button Military Academy. We've faced them once this year and beat them comfortably, 5-1, on their own turf, Yu Shen explained, gesturing toward the replay footage now showing Button's previous matches. But they've grown since then. Picked up a few new tricks, he added calmly, as the team leaned in, listening more seriously now. Even so, Button poses no real threat. According to our intelligence, they don't have a single Grandmaster tier fighter. Their fundamentals are still shaky, and their overall conditioning is still poor. However, Yu Shen's tone stiffened slightly. This is the circuits. If you start underestimating people, you'll find yourself eating dirt before you even realize it. The team nodded, their earlier giddiness fading. Here's our lineup for tomorrow, Yu Shen continued. Duplessis will open the fight and secure us the first win. After that, we'll adapt depending on who Button sends next. Boxer, Coley, and Drake, be ready to rotate in. Your job is to maintain the lead. His eyes then shifted toward Leo. And you, Skyshard, will be our closer. Leo nodded silently, understanding the weight of the responsibility. You're the contingency plan, Yu Shen added. If things go south, you'll be the one to put this match to bed. Yu Shen's voice softened slightly but carried more weight. Right now, every academy is desperate to see you in action. That alone is a weapon. If we give them just enough to fear you, without showing them the full deck, then every counter-strategy they design will collapse when it matters. Major Hen, who stood with his arms crossed in the back of the room, nodded his head in approval over Yu Shen's words. Having half information was always more dangerous than having no information, which was why Yu Shen felt keen on feeding the opponent's misleading data on Leo. However, in his head, Leo was to only fight one single fight for the win at the end. However, never in his wildest dreams could Yu Shen have predicted what was about to unfold next. Next day, round of 32. Being one of the fighters scheduled to participate today, Leo quietly geared up and took his place in the contestant stands, watching as the referees conducted their final inspection of the arena map before the match officially began. Today's battlefield was the flat prairies, a simple, wide-open expanse of soft grass, devoid of obstacles or cover. It was a battlefield designed to favor mobility and pure dueling skill, where footwork, timing, and adaptability would determine the outcome. There were no walls to hide behind, no uneven terrain to exploit, just an endless flatland beneath the clear morning sky. Yet, despite the simplicity and severity of the map, the mood within the Rodova camp remained surprisingly lighthearted. I'm going to humiliate Button Academy today, Duplessis grinned, adjusting his gloves. And hopefully look cool doing it. There's this absolute bombshell of a girl from Clarence Academy watching me fight today, so I gotta put on a show. The others snickered, some giggling like school children, fully buying into the playful energy. I just hope a sponsor notices me, Boxer admitted more seriously. Let's be honest, the captain probably won't rotate us into the lineup once we hit the round of 16. So this is our last shot to make an impression. The atmosphere wavered between casual and bittersweet as reality settled in. It is what it is, Drake shrugged. We'll leave the deep runs to the captain and the monsters. But that doesn't mean we can't make it flashy while we're here. We've studied Button Academy's patterns. We've got this. Today's gonna be our show. Excited chatter followed, but Leo sat apart, arms crossed and eyes distant. He didn't join in. He never did. To him, this wasn't about putting on a show, earning a sponsorship, or making one last splash before inevitable elimination. For him it was war. Even if his opponents were weaker on paper, none of them grandmasters, Leo refused to underestimate them. While the others joked and fantasized, Leo sat silently, running precise simulations in his mind about how his fights against each opponent could unfold. What attack patterns of his could Button Academy break? What would he do if a hidden technique forced him into a corner? He ran scenario after scenario, refusing to let the so-called obvious victory lull him into complacency. To Leo, every fight was real, every opponent was dangerous, and every moment of underestimation could mean defeat, no matter how green or inexperienced the enemy seemed. However, unfortunately, he was the only one on the team to look at things that way, as the others were simply too preoccupied with impressing girls and looking cool rather than the actual fight. Sigh, I just hope these idiots pull through without a problem, for their own sake, Leo thought, shaking his head, as the referees finally signaled for the openers to enter. That's it guys. That's my cue. I'm off, wish me luck, Duplessis said before stepping onto the arena, as he waved and signaled to a roaring crowd, basking in their appreciation like a drunkard who had just found a pool of alcohol to take a dip in. Dash 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 dash. And we kick off round of 32 with a bang. Lee, it's Rodova taking on Button for the opening match of Day 3, Derek announced, as the logo of both teams appeared on the Jumbotron. 3 changes for Rodova today. Duplessis, Drake and Leo Skyshard come in, while Minerva, DP and Enzo are out. What do you think of this lineup, Derek? The mystery enigma Leo Skyshard is finally into the mix, but still no signs of Captain Yushen. Lee asked with an ironic voice, as Derek replied with witty humor. No Yushen. No problem, Rodova must be confident in their ability to handle Button Academy without him. However, Button is not taking this fight as casually as Rodova. They have finally decided to bring Captain Sam into the mix, as he replaces their archer Urja as the only replacement over their lineup yesterday, Derek said, as the Jumbotron played clippings of Captain Sam, the enigmatic spearmaster. Alright, the field inspection is complete, the openers have been called on, and it's Duplessis opening for Rodova against Pistachio from Button, in a very interesting Hunter vs. Hunter opening matchup, Lee announced, as the opening fighters took their starting spots on the battlefield, as the crowd roared in anticipation. Sky God Arena, round of 32, Duplessis vs. Pistachio. The crowd roared as the first fighters of the day stepped onto the Flat Prairies arena. Duplessis adjusted his short swords with a cocky grin, waving toward the stands where Rodova's supporters erupted into cheers, whereas across from him, Pistachio quietly rolled his shoulders, eyes calm and unreadable. And we're off, Derek called as the referee signaled for the match to begin. Duplessis charged first, blades flashing as he pressed Pistachio onto the defensive. His attacks came fast and sharp, a flurry of precise slashes forcing Pistachio to retreat step by step. For now, it's all Duplessis, Lee commented. He's clearly the quicker fighter, and he's capitalizing on it. Within moments, Duplessis seemed to push Pistachio back towards the marked boundary of the arena, completely dictating the pace. Ooh, Pistachio needs to be careful here, he's running out of ground to retreat, 20 more meters backed up and he will suffer from a ring-out elimination. Derek commented, as understanding his precarious position, Pistachio stopped backing away and tried to stand his ground, only for a clean slash from Duplessis to graze his shoulders. Slash. The crowd erupted into cheers at the sight of first blood, as streams of red-hot blood squirted everywhere. Pistachio reeled in pain from the blow, his mobility reduced, as his lousy attempt to counter was quickly neutralized by Duplessis, who disarmed his opponent by having his short sword fly out of his hands. Whoa, what a move by Duplessis, he's practically toying with his opponent now, Derek said, as with his opponent seemingly at his mercy, Duplessis, rather than finishing the fight, turned his head toward the audience, raising a hand in triumph. He wanted to savor this moment, he wanted to showboat a bit before ending the fight, however, this one slip-up proved to be his biggest mistake. As while the crowd cheered louder, Pistachio did not hesitate to make the most of this opportunity either, as drawing another blade from the scabbard wrapped around his waist, Pistachio lunged forward, sidestepping Duplessis' poorly guarded flank. As with a swift, ruthless slash, he opened up Duplessis' exposed face. Slash. Duplessis stumbled, eyes wide in disbelief as he felt blood dripping from his handsome face. What? He murmured in disbelief, worried about how his handsome face must look now, as Pistachio followed up with another decisive strike to his temple, knocking him out cold. Thud. Duplessis' limp body hit the floor, as the entire arena fell into stunned silence. What just happened? Derek gasped. Pistachio turns it around in the blink of an eye. Lee shook his head. Duplessis got too cocky. He had the fight in the bag and threw it away for a moment of showboating. A rookie mistake. The commentators criticized Duplessis for his stupidity, however, they did not curse him out loud like Leo did from the stands. Fucking showboating idiot, Leo muttered under his breath, grinding his teeth in frustration. As the referee raised Pistachio's hand as the winner. And just like that, Button Academy draws ahead. Rodova is 0-1 down. Derek announced as the crowd erupted into mixed cheers and gasps. Leo, what do we do now? We never thought about what to do if Duplessis lost the first fight. It wasn't supposed to be this way. Which one of us steps up next? I'm only supposed to fight their archer, while Coley is supposed to take on their mage, and Boxer is supposed to take on their tank. But since we lost the initiative, it's us who has to send a replacement fighter next. So who goes? Drake asked Leo, as Leo let out a long sigh. He glanced towards Yu Shen in the crowd, who seemed to already have an idea of what was going on, as he pointed towards Boxer to go next. Boxer goes, Leo declared, as it was the close-range specialist that went in next, allowing Button Academy to respond with a counter-strategy of their own. To face Boxer, the close-range specialist, Button sent in Diane, their nimble and sharp-eyed archer, in what was, on paper, the worst possible matchup for Boxer to take. However, expectations from Boxer still remained high. After all, Boxer was a Rodova fighter, a cut above most other academy students, and was still anticipated to win, even against an unfavorable opponent. But the moment Boxer stepped onto the battlefield, Leo's instinct screamed at him that something was off. The way Boxer hesitated, the nervous look plastered on his face, it was clear as day. He hasn't studied her, Leo realized, grinding his teeth. As the referee signaled for the fight to begin, Boxer charged in with his trademark aggression, looking to close the distance before Diane could set up. But it was a stupid decision. He did not have the raw speed to cover 30 meters of separation within a split second, and that gave Diane enough time to knock her first arrow. Swish. Asterisk. Diane fired off a frost-tipped arrow that struck the ground in front of Boxer, instantly freezing a patch of the prairie as Boxer slipped clumsily, losing his momentum. Instead of adapting and taking a more cautious approach, he lunged forward recklessly. As boom. Asterisk. This time, Diane loosened an explosive arrow that detonated on impact, sending Boxer staggering backward with singed clothes and several shallow cuts. She's not just an archer, she's a rare mage archer, Derek exclaimed. She's not using predetermined arrows, she's enchanting them on the go as she needs, Lee. Boxer looks like a fish out of water, Derek. He was ready for a simple brawl but didn't prepare for this. Lee replied. Instead of resetting or slowing down, Boxer doubled down on blind aggression, attempting to close the gap without any thought. However, his punches met nothing but air as Diane used the open terrain perfectly, kiting him effortlessly. Then, one more frost arrow struck his ankle, locking his movement for just a split second. But that second was all she needed. As thwip. Asterisk. Diane landed a clean shot to the back of Boxer's knee, forcing him to collapse. You're mine, she declared at that point, as before he could even try to rise or recover, a third arrow pinned him to the ground, forcing the referee to step in and declare him unable to continue. An absolute humiliation for Rodova. Derek called. That's a clean and decisive win for Diane. Leo could barely watch, grinding his teeth so hard it hurt. Idiot, he muttered under his breath. But the nightmare didn't end there. Coley entered next against Button's third fighter, hoping to salvage the situation. However, just like Boxer, he crumbled. His overly defensive stance was exploited by the Button swordsman who baited him into a tight spot, only to disarm and incapacitate him within minutes. Button takes another one, Lee shouted, almost in disbelief. Then came Drake, known for his calculated fighting style, but the nerves got to him. The opponent, utilizing the flat terrain perfectly, overwhelmed Drake's slower, reactionary style with sheer aggression and outmaneuvered him, as within 5 minutes, Drake was lying on his back, staring up at the clouds in shame. And with that, Derek declared, Rodova is down 4-0. Lee, I don't think anyone in this arena thought Button Academy would be leading Rodova of all teams by this margin. Leo sat motionless, staring blankly at the field, his jaw locked in frustration. Rodova, one of the tournament favorites, was now just one defeat away from a humiliating early exit, and it was all up to Leo now to salvage the situation. I knew these idiots focus on matchups and strategy too much instead of focusing on their own strength, Leo cursed as he stepped onto the battlefield, only to be welcomed by a tense and silent crowd, who did not even cheer him on. Sky God Arena, round of 32. The atmosphere in the Sky God Arena had shifted dramatically after Rodova's 4th consecutive loss. The energy that once favored Rodova now felt cold and uncertain, as thousands of spectators murmured nervously. Well, Lee, this is not the Rodova we expected to see. Derek's voice broke through the uneasy buzz, carrying a mix of disbelief and tension. Rodova, the number 1 seed, now finds themselves on the brink of elimination, down 4-0 to Button Military Academy. Lee exhaled deeply, shaking his head. They've been completely outplayed, Derek. And what's more concerning is that this wasn't just one bad matchup. This was systematic. Boxer, Coley, Drake, all folded under pressure. It's almost like Button knew exactly how to push Rodova's buttons, no pun intended. Derek nodded. Exactly, Lee. Button Academy came prepared for war today, but Rodova were overconfident and now they're on the back foot. Imagine if they're eliminated here. What a blow would that be to their reputation. The screen zoomed in on Leo, walking calmly out towards the arena, as he stocked weapons into his utility belt. And now, it's all on the wildcard, Leo Skyshard, Derek continued, voice steady but carrying the weight of the moment. The first year who was completely unknown before this year's preliminaries. He needs to win 5 straight fights if Rodova wants to stay alive. Lee leaned forward. 5 straight wins against opponents who have now tasted blood and can see victory within their grasp. The Jumbotron displayed the Button lineup, showing all 5 remaining fighters, including their captain, Sam, waiting calmly. A mountain, Derek. That's what Leo has ahead of him, Lee added. No Yu Shen, no Su Yong, no Minerva. He's going to have to claw Rodova back into this by himself. It's as bad as it gets. The camera caught Leo stepping into the prairie grass, as he lightly adjusted his neck and rotated his shoulders. And yet, Derek said, voice softening slightly, I don't think he looks afraid. The crowd, sensing the tension, began to buzz louder. Some whispered doubts. Others hoped for a miracle, but all eyes shifted towards the lone fighter about to take his starting position, as the impossible comeback seemed to rest solely on his shoulders. As Leo took his starting spot on the battlefield, he could immediately feel it, the sheer weight of attention crashing down on him like a tidal wave. Hundreds of thousands of spectators filled the Sky God Arena to capacity, and their collective gaze seemed to drill into his very soul. The air trembled with anxiety, whispers of curiosity and expectation spreading like wildfire throughout the stands. The towering bleachers curved high into the sky, seemingly endless, as banners, flags, and academy colors fluttered in the artificial breeze. From up top, the dual suns shone brightly in the sky, causing his body to cast 2 distinct shadows on the grass below. Huff. Leo exhaled slowly, his sharp eyes scanning the terrain. Flat, wide, open. The prairie battlefield was deceptively simple, leaving no cover to hide behind. It was the perfect stage for a duel, raw and honest. But what stood out most to Leo wasn't the arena itself. It was the realization that all these eyes, all this energy in the arena, was focused solely on him. So this is what it feels like to be on the center stage at the circuits, he thought, adjusting the grip on his dagger as a familiar coldness seeped into his veins, dulling the noise of the crowd. He was used to operating in the shadows, where his existence was but a fleeting whisper. But today, there was no hiding. Not from the crowd. Not from Button Academy. And definitely not from his responsibility as a Rodova team member, to somehow find a way to push his team over the line. I can do this, Leo said to himself, as he pointed towards his descending opponent, with nothing but cold indifference in his eyes. Bring it, he said, short and simple as a small grin played out on his face. Unlike the others from Rodova to come out before him, Leo wasn't nervous of what opponent he would face, nor did he have a rigid strategy to take them on. What he had was the confidence to take on any opponent he faced, no matter the matchup, and hence, as his first opponent Diane took the stage, Leo greeted her with nothing but a cold smile. Begin, the referee signaled, as Leo pounced upon Diane, the same way Boxer did before him. However, unlike Boxer who could not cover the distance of 30 meters before Diane knocked an arrow and took aim, Leo could. Fast, Diane thought in alarm, as in a blink of an eye Leo was upon her. She raised her bow to block Leo's incoming blow from height. However, much to her misery, the second Leo's dual daggers met against the solid metal handle of her bow. Instead of blocking the attack, it snapped in half, as Leo sliced clean through her weapon. What? Diane gasped in alarm, as she desperately tried to step back and create distance. However, Leo activated Shadow Bind to trip her as she moved, giving him the opening he needed to finish the match. Pow! 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 Hitting her right on the face without any mercy using the dull side of his dagger, Leo punched the lights out of her, but not before he broke her nose and two of her teeth in what was a brutal knockout. Gasp! The audience gasped in horror when they saw a pretty blonde girl being brutalized in such a way by a black-haired dude, before cheering out loud for the same violence, as they enjoyed the slow-motion clippings of her tooth flying out of her face. And that's it for Diane. The archer is down, the archer is out, Lee announced excitedly. Leo Skyshard pulls one back for Rodova as the score is now 1-4. Can he keep this momentum up? Derek asked, as the crowd bit their nails in excitement. The match ended before it ever began. What a display of speed and strength by Skyshard. He is showing exactly why Grandmaster warriors can't lose to master-level fighters, as the realm difference is simply too overwhelming to ignore, Lee added, as the next fighter Pistachio stepped up to face Leo, with the referee guiding Leo back to his initial starting spot. I'm not gonna move a single inch from my starting spot here, so come at me and do your worst. My job is to tire you out, before the next fighter comes in, because even if I can't defeat you, as long as I tire you out, Captain Sam will surely score the final win for us. Pistachio declared as he took his starting spot, as he decided to play some mind games with Leo before the fight began. What's he doing, Derek? Why is he telling his opponent his exact plan? Is this a bait? Is he just dumb? Or is this a well-planned strategy? Lee wondered, as Derek chuckled on the mic beside him. That's the beauty of the circuits, Derek. Genius or dumb, we will know in a few seconds now, won't we? Derek said, as the referee signaled for the match to begin. Leo did not feel threatened by Pistachio's bold declaration that he wouldn't move from his starting spot. In fact, it almost felt like a favor. Please don't move. Stay as you are and I'll end this in the blink of an eye, Leo thought, as the corner of his mouth twitched upward. There was no universe where he lost a battle of speed to a master-level fighter. If anything, this only gave him a cleaner shot at a fast finish. Still, his instincts did not let him fully relax. Pistachio wasn't stupid, not after the way he'd turned the fight around against Duplessis. He was a cunning fighter and there could be a trap hidden beneath that confidence, and so, Leo chose to proceed with a sliver of caution. Begin. The referee's voice rang out, followed by an eruption of cheers from the crowd. As without hesitation, Leo flung two daggers toward Pistachio. The first of whom was parried cleanly, however, the second seemed to force Pistachio to veer left in a sharp dodge. Which was a big mistake, as him dodging the move allowed Leo to use Blade switch. As in an instant, Leo vanished from his starting spot, seemingly disappearing as a whole. To the untrained eye, it looked like teleportation, as one moment he stood 30 meters ahead of his opponent and in the next, he was behind him, just like a whisper of death. As before his opponent could even turn around, Leo drove his daggers forward in a ruthless flurry, piercing into the soft tissue between armor plates along Pistachio's lower back, as he cut the vital nerve bundles in his spine. "Thanks for coming," Leo murmured into his ear coldly. "Please try again next year." As with his nerve bundles cut, Pistachio's body crumpled forward like a puppet with its strings cut, as the crowd erupted into cheers. Another dominant finish by Skyshard, he pulls another point back for Rodova. Derek exclaimed, voice sharp with awe. This time he does it by brutally stabbing his opponent in the spine. Does this man know no mercy? That's an ice-cold finish. Lee's voice followed quickly. That instant movement, was that teleportation? No, it had form, structure. That was some advanced movement technique executed at its cleanest. Skyshard has some pretty skillful moves in his bag. The camera panned briefly to Button Academy's side of the arena, where Captain Sam narrowed his eyes. His fingers tightened slightly around the shaft of his spear, and the casual smile he'd worn for most of the day faded. Sam could feel the heat now, as he realized that fighting Leo was not going to be simple. Meanwhile, in the Rodova camp, Yushen watched the match unfold with barely contained fury etched across his face. Leo was now being forced to reveal key skills and techniques, cards that were supposed to remain hidden until the later, more critical stages of the tournament. And it was all his own fault. He had foolishly placed trust in the wrong teammates, believing they had what it took to hold their ground against the universe's elite. But instead of warriors, they had turned out to be overconfident fools, pampered brats playing dress-up on the biggest stage of them all. Button Academy should never have posed a threat. Yet here they were, up 4-2, on the brink of pulling off the biggest upset in circuit history. As that scoreboard alone was big enough achievement to become a badge of honor for Button, a moment their academy would proudly boast about for decades. And that was assuming Leo pulled off the comeback. Because if he failed, if he so much as stumbled once, then this would go down as the most humiliating defeat in Rodova's legacy. An early round collapse, a historic choke, and the blame would fall squarely on Yushen, for being arrogant enough to roll the dice with a second-rate lineup when everything was on the line. "Come on Skyshard, hold strong," Yushen prayed, as he clenched his fists tight. However, it was at that moment that he felt a hand being placed on his shoulders. "Relax, Captain, Skyshard doesn't need your prayers to win. Let alone defeating these 5, he can defeat 50 of them alone, even if they took him on, all at once. My brother has more talent in his pinky than Button has in their academy history. He's not a choker like the others. He's got this," Su Yong assured, as he seemed to read Yushen's mind in this tough time. "Let's hope so," Yushen replied with a heavy sigh, as he resolved to never trust the B-team fools ever again. The next couple of matches posed no real challenge for Leo. His third opponent, a nimble twin dagger wielder, tried to overwhelm him with speed and misdirection. But against Leo's absolute vision, there was no such thing as a blind spot. Every feint was read, every angle covered. As within 30 seconds, Leo had parried, disarmed, and slammed the opponent into the ground hard enough to crack the arena floor. The fourth was a heavy shield brawler who tried to stall the fight with pure defense. But Leo danced around him with ruthless efficiency, using rapid footwork and precision cuts to dismantle the man's stance bit by bit. Then, with a sharp flick of his wrist and a clean maneuver under the shield, he planted a reverse dagger strike under the fighter's chin, knocking him unconscious in one move. Thud. Another one down. Rodova 4, Button 4. And just like that, it's all square. Derek shouted, nearly rising from his seat. Leo Skyshard pulls Rodova from the depths of despair into a deadlock. 4 fights, 4 wins, all without breaking a sweat. Derek said, as the crowd went absolutely mental now. The initial nervousness of the Rodova supporters finally melted away, as they were now enjoying this nail-biting contest, with their last fighter showing the Academy's true worth. "This man is built differently, Derek," Lee added. "Cold, calculating, surgical. He isn't just winning, he's dominating. He's a menacing fighter in every sense of the word." As the dust settled, all eyes turned to Button's final fighter. Captain Sam. He rose from his seat slowly, exhaling through his nose as he grabbed his long obsidian spear. His expression was unreadable, neither nervous nor cocky, just focused. "There he is," Derek said, voice hushed now. "Captain Sam, Button Academy's ace, a top spear master who's been sitting and observing the whole time. He's fresh, he's rested, and he's been analyzing every single move Leo Skyshard has made so far. Rodova's comeback has been nothing short of legendary," Lee added, "but it all comes down to this final clash. Skyshard versus Sam. Ice Cold versus Mr. Hot, one fight to decide it all." The crowd leaned forward in their seats, breath held. This duel would decide whether Rodova advanced or fell, and while things seemed to lean into Rodova's favor, with Leo being a Grand Master and Sam being just a master-level fighter, Sam seemed to have a big surprise for everyone. "Everyone asked me why I missed the round of 64 fight yesterday, and the answer was quite complicated. I missed the round of 64 yesterday not by choice, but because I wasn't ready. I broke through to Grand Master the night before and was struggling yesterday. But I'm ready now, and I plan to lead my team to the next round," Sam said, as he dropped a bombshell at the last possible moment. For more thrilling fanfiction stories like this, check out my channel Fanfic Audiobook. Dive into epic adventures, mysterious realms, and legendary journeys brought to life through immersive storytelling. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing audiobooks.